for celestial and biblical events. Thank you all for being here. Happy Monday morning. Happy first day of fall. Thank you for joining us. We know you've got many, many choices to make every single day, and we're always so very grateful that you choose to spend some time with us. So if we do have the rapture this week, I have some questions. I'll get to those in a moment. Please consider, there's a gifting goal today. Don't forget we're crowdfunded. You want to support the channel? Easiest way to do that is to use the various things that are out there at Factsstillmatter, and I'll read any note that you send along with it. Don't forget there's also a gifting goal. If you haven't yet joined our team, please do that. Also, in the link that's in the link tree that's in my bio, you can join our Discord. Just follow the verification steps. If you have an issue with that, please just reach out to one of the mods, and we might have a surprise for you guys a little bit later on this morning, but I'll leave that right there. Okay. Again, happy first day of fall, or as in this part of the world we refer to it, happy peeper season. And I was out on my motorcycle this weekend, and there were peepers out everywhere, leaf peepers, people from the flatlands, so to speak. But anyway, in regards to the rapture, what I want to know is, like, can you buy up? Can you get like a first class seat? Do you get mints? Is there like a pillow? Or is it more like you just get what you get, like Spirit Airlines kind of thing? And could we get on with it, please? I got a tax bill I got to pay at the end of the month. I don't want to have to order more wood if I don't need to, right? Can we just get on with it? I'd really appreciate that. My gosh. I mean, all these promises, it's the ultimate foreplay. It's like the celestial and biblical tease. Good girl, rapture. Good girl. Anyway, thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys. I just want to make sure that everybody's good. I know there's a lot going on. We got a lot to talk about today, but in a constant effort to try to find some common ground, I want to talk about a bunch of shit today, because it is literally us versus them. That's the collective us, and they want it to be us versus them because they don't want it to be us versus them. So we'll get into that. I think the first place I want to start, though, is we've got TikTok news, and we need to kind of address it, right? So the latest is this deal that was apparently, depending on who you want to believe, the White House says the deal's already been signed. There's no evidence of that. There's still a lot of, churning and burning in regards to negotiation. I know the president. Thank you, Swishy Raiders. We love you guys. Hearts in the chat for Swishy Raiders, please. The two countries are negotiating a framework to address TikTok's U.S. operations, ownership, and core tech, especially the algorithm, because the algorithm is what makes TikTok TikTok. President Trump and President Xi have reportedly made progress toward resolving the dispute. So, again, the rhetoric from the White House is the deal's done. It's like it's moving in that particular direction. One of the biggest sticking points is who controls the algorithm, which is the secret sauce. The algorithm is seen as central to TikTok's success, and China has historically resisted sharing or relinquishing it. Under proposals, TikTok's U.S. algorithm may be leased or licensed to a U.S.-based entity, possibly under strict oversight. The plan being discussed includes creating a U.S.-based joint venture for TikTok's operations. This entity would be a majority owned by American investors, with ByteDance, parent company of TikTok now, potentially owning less than 20%. Oracle, often mentioned as being part of the oversight, especially for data security, storage of U.S. data, and algorithm control, along with verification of source code, etc. The enforcement of the U.S. law that would ban TikTok, unless it meets certain criteria, has been repeatedly delayed as negotiations continue. The Supreme Court upheld the ban law, but its execution has been paused pending the outcome of these negotiations. TikTok, ByteDance issued statements thanking Trump and Xi for efforts to preserve TikTok in the U.S. and said that they'll comply with all applicable laws to remain operational. From TikTok's own newsroom, recent updates continue around, quote, safety, community, product, safety tools for families, new community, and content policies. So anyway, long story short, the White House basically wants people to believe that this deal's done. It's not even close, because there's lots of other things that have to happen. Some of the investors and or people involved on the U.S. side include Oracle. They are expected to be central to the deal, likely to manage or host U.S. user data, infrastructure, maybe oversee algorithm licensing for U.S. side. Again, maybe, likely. Silver Lake Management, private equity firm often mentioned as part of the consortium that would take a large, almost 80% stake in U.S. TikTok operations. Andreessen Horowitz, which is a VC firm, expected to be one of the largest investors. Michael Dell from Dell Technologies, Lachlan Murdoch, media magnate, that are said to join the group of U.S. investors. Lachlan is especially named. Rupert may also be involved, and then existing ByteDance and TikTok investors. So there's some things that have to happen. Congress ultimately has to approve it because they signed a law banning it, so they're going to have to meet certain criteria. So we know Congress is certainly efficient. Chinese government's got to approve it. So there's a long way to go in this process, a long way. It is a good reminder, though, that we are in the process of moving to YouTube. So anything you can do to help us with that, later on this week, we'll be making an announcement about something else we're going to try to do to help make that happen, but not today. So if you want to support the channel, help us in that endeavor, best way to do it is at Factsstillmatter. Don't forget there's merch in the merch store too. All these things will help us now make that transition because we ain't going anywhere, but we just don't know the future of this particular platform. It's been great. It has helped us form this amazing community that we built here, but we just may be forced to kind of do something else, but we'll keep an eye on that. So again, we'll watch it. We'll watch it closely. So thank you. Out and about this weekend, it was wild. Hopefully you guys had a chance to go out and do some stuff. Like I said, I was on my motorcycle. It was absolutely beautiful up in the Northeast Kingdom, or the NEK. But so we're going to be building our commune. Yeah, I'll get like some access to the infrastructure. Otherwise, I'll just be stuck out of the boat. And I have to work for my keep. I have to earn my keep. Anyway, if you know, you know. Okay, so today there's a few things that I really want to get into. So it really spurred me because I saw this picture. You guys have probably seen this picture by now. It kind of personifies exactly what I want to discuss today. This is from the state dinner that happened in London. And it was attended by some people. We're going to go through it. We're going to go through it. So you see this absolutely lavish decadence, and then you see starving children in Gaza, literally fighting for their lives. The global issue about wealth transfer is so real, and we're gonna get into it. And the thing that really amazes me about this particular time in our history is that in our country, the people that suffer the most from food insecurity, from poverty, from loss of income and wealth, whatever wealth they might had, those people tend to be conservative voters, right? So we're going to go through that exercise today, and I spent a lot of time trying to say, I'm trying to look at the wealth gap, and I'm trying to look at the income gap, and I was kind of looking at how CEO salaries have increased. It's like 1,200% in the same time. The workers' wages have increased about 20%. So all these things, and it is my hope that people will start to see it, because that's what authoritarians want. They don't want the masses united in opposition to them because there is more of us than them. I'm not interested in breaking bread with Nazis, and I don't have to have a conversation with you. My hope is that you realize it on your own, once and for all. So as I'm cruising around, working over the weekend, putting stuff together for the show, doing my other job, and trying to squeeze in some you time, because that's important. Everybody, make sure you take some you time for you, just for you. Could be a half an hour, could be 15 minutes, could be whatever. Just find some time for you. Be a little selfish. It's okay. I was looking at all this information. I'm thinking this is just overwhelmingly just points to the billionaire class globally. You want to talk about the global cabal of billionaires? Yeah, they are the actual threat. So what we try to do on our show here is try to to be objective, but also report out on the news. And everything that I see, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And until there's some resistance, now whether it be a national strike or just unity or whatever it is, there has to be some movement from the conservative right, because they're the ones that are still holding on to this belief of this trickle-down economic theory that's never worked. That's just never worked. So we'll break that down. Before we get too deep down that road, I've got some sound over the weekend that I want to play for you. There's going to be an announcement coming from the White House today. First of all, some of the things that I didn't watch any of the CK ceremony. Now there's a push from, I think it's the governor of Oklahoma, that they want to erect a memorial to CK in every public square in their state, trying to claim that he is one of the greatest civil rights leaders in American history. There's that, right? So this is a little sound from Mr. Trump from that event over the weekend, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
It was Charlie who helped unite MAGA, and you know what MAHA is? That's right, Make America Healthy Again. And tomorrow we're going to have one of the biggest announcements, really medically, I think, in the history of our country. We're going to be doing it with Bobby and Oz and all of the professionals. I think you're going to find it to be amazing. I think we found an answer to autism. How about that? Autism. Tomorrow we're going to be talking in the Oval Office in the White House about autism, how it happens, so we won't let it happen anymore, and how to get at least somewhat better when you have it, so that parents can help their child, their beautiful child. That's a big one. I've been bugging everybody over there.
There you have it. So what he's talking about, apparently there's going to be an announcement from the White House today under the direction of RFK about connections to, and by the way, they used Tylenol. So if I were Tylenol, the brand, I'd be suing their fucking asses like it was yesterday, attempting to make claims that acetaminophen and paracetamol are contributing causes to autism. So thank you to the mod team. I found this as well from Unbiased Science Podcast. Today, you might hear that we finally found the cause of autism. The Trump administration is expected to announce that Tylenol, acetaminophen, or paracetamol taken during pregnancy causes autism, and that a drug called leucovorin can treat it. That's leucovorin, Leucovorin. I think it's pronounced leucovorin, can treat it. Again, I'm just reporting on what they are telling us. So the MAHA community under the direction of Bobby Kennedy, who's always made these particular claims. Okay. So for TikTok, this is educational purposes only. F1 in the chat, please. This follows RFK Jr.'s promise to release the cause of the autism epidemic. First of all, to call it that is interesting, by September of this year. Before you panic or feel guilty, let's examine what the science actually says. Autism is complex reality. We can't point to a single cause. Again, autism's complex reality. We cannot point to a single cause. Autism isn't a mystery. We just started investigating. We've been studying it for decades. We know it's incredibly complex and has strong genetic components. 100 plus related gene markers have been identified. Parental age plays a role. Environmental factors may contribute. Anyone claiming a single cause is oversimplifying a complex medical reality. Are we experiencing an autism epidemic? Many in the medical community think not. Diagnosis increased from 1 in 150 in 2000 to 1 in 31 today, but diagnostic criteria were broadened in 1994 and then again in 2013. We have better screening tools now, and more professionals recognize signs of autism. We're identifying people who were always there but previously went undiagnosed. Part 1, Tylenol, acetaminophen evidence. The acetaminophen claim centers on a Harvard Mount Sinai review of 46 studies. The review's results were so inconsistent that a meta-analysis was unable to be performed. Some association was noted in 27 studies. The rest found absolutely nothing. The lead author explicitly states that, quote, cannot answer the question about causation, unquote, and compared it to ice cream sales and crime, which both rise in the summer. Causation, I should say. Part 2, Tylenol, acetaminophen evidence. The most rigorous study tells a different story. Swedish researchers studied 2.5 million children, including 186,000 exposed to acetaminophen during pregnancy. Initially, they found a 5 to 7% increased risk of autism. So why the initial association? Women who take acetaminophen during pregnancy aren't random. They're more likely to have infections, chronic pain, ADHD, autism themselves, or psychiatric conditions. When they compared siblings, one exposed, one not, to control for genetics and family environment, the association disappeared completely. zero increased likelihood, no dose response relationship. This is what robust gold standard science looks like. Leucovorin as a treatment, preliminary data at best. Leucovorin is a prescription medication, not a supplement. It's a folate form or folinic acid 5-formE-THF, typically used for chemotherapy side effects. Only a small trial exists in children with autism using doses 10 to 100x normal folate intake. Unlike Tylenol, we can't even meta-analyze this data. The studies are tiny, use different doses, and measure outcomes differently, with only some scales showing improvements. Researchers claim those with specific antibodies benefit most, but they hold the patent for the antibody test. Conflict of interest much? Probably. Current evidence, a weak signal from limited studies suggests some children might show modest improvements in certain symptoms, for example, verbal communication. This preliminary research is being inappropriately painted as a breakthrough. Leucovorin as a cure, a theory at best. The theory, some children with autism have autoantibodies blocking folate from entering their brains during development. Pharmacological doses of leucovorin might bypass this blockage to correct low brain folate levels. So many uncertainties. Approximately 70% of autistic people studied have these antibodies, but so do 50 to 60% of their neurotypical family members, suggesting antibodies alone don't explain autism. Critical unknowns: when to measure antibodies, how often, what levels count as high, and who will actually respond to leucovorin treatment. A treatment for some, but for whom? Available data suggests that leucovorin won't help all autistic children. Only a subset may show some variable improvements. We need better research to identify which individuals might benefit from this treatment. Well-established risk of high fevers during pregnancy. Untreated fever, especially early in pregnancy, can lead to birth defects. For example, neural tube defects. This is established, not speculation. Acetaminophen remains the safest option for fever and pain relief during pregnancy. It's always best to use the lowest effective dose for the shortest amount of time. NSAIDs are contraindicated in the second half of pregnancy. Always talk to your medical professional, your physician, your clinician, etc. To parents, I know a lot of people are probably freaking out about this shit. You are not to blame. Stop the stigma and the guilt. This announcement further stigmatizes autism, treating it as something to prevent rather than understand and support. To parents of children with autism blaming themselves, you did not cause your child's neurodevelopment differences. Not with Tylenol, not with anything. To those pregnant and worried about every choice, you deserve evidence-based guidance, not fear-mongering. Your children deserve acceptance and support, not another round of what caused this. This cycle of blame, always targeting mothers, is cruel and unfounded. If today's announcement claims acetaminophen is a definitive cause of autism, it will be based on weak, contradictory evidence at best. Autism is complex, and there is no cause, but genetics have a strong role. Untreated fever during pregnancy has established risks like neural tube defects. A massive study of children found no increased autism risk when adjusting for genetics. And leucovorin is not a proven treatment. It has only been tested in small trials with modest results. These early preliminary findings do not support abandoning safe fever management during pregnancy. I hope that helps a little bit. Again, this is from the Unbiased Science Podcast. The issue that we get from our administration, when I talk about this in terms of public health, because this affects all of us. Again, this is the us. This affects all of us. This shit is dangerous. So I know that there's going to be people that have already fallen down that trap, right? That just feel like they want to lead a healthy lifestyle, and I support that. They don't necessarily want to have to be dependent on pharmaceuticals, and I support that too. But this announcement today, I hope what we just discussed makes you feel a little bit better. You're not to blame. Our society blames women for just about everything anyway. You're not to blame. Moms, you're not to blame. If you decided to take Tylenol, acetaminophen during your pregnancy, and your child has autism, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't let them own that. Okay? So I hope that helps. All right. Oh, more Rapture. Thank you, Blondie. Appreciate you. Oh, Blondie. Oh, Blondie back in the day. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'll bring up Lydia. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Just a quick thing. May I make a suggestion about language use?
Sure.
The phrase birth defects or defects for humans in general is tied to Schnazi rhetoric.
I was just reading the story.
I realize. Not about you specifically, but just wanted to point this out for everyone listening. Typically, we refer to people as having conditions these days. It's a more people-friendly way of talking. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lydia. I appreciate that. Have a good day.
Take care.
Okay. Just as a real quick check, gas is $3.19 a gallon. It's up 5 cents since Inauguration Day. And the current U.S. inflation rate is at 2.9%, which gets us back to this particular topic today. Okay, so then also over the weekend, we had, the president saying some very interesting things. I'm still not letting go of this whole this free speech bullshit because, listen, so we went through the exercise last week about how no one in our country should be happy that the government is stepping in. Now, the people on the conservative right, the people that are now that they've canonized Charlie Kirk to turn him into a martyr, and in some circles want him to be recognized as the most remembered civil rights leader, that's just ridiculous. The free market should have decided the fate of Jimmy Kimmel. It's not a coincidence. We know. I went through the exercise about these mergers between Nexstar and Tenga, and how Disney and Hulu want to buy Fubo. Those are all related. So don't let anybody tell you that this is just, those entities had a right to do what they did. You're right. They absolutely did, under pressure from the government, meaning that unless you do this, we are not going to approve these mergers for you. That is just the evidence, okay? Tenga and the Nexstar Tenga purchase needs the FCC to change its rules about domestic coverage from 39% currently under FCC rules, which means one media property cannot cover more than 39% of the U.S. Brendan Carr has talked about this in terms of we got to change this up a little bit so you can manipulate the media. Again, a fundamental tenet of capitalism, that's an interesting Freudian slip, of authoritarianism, okay? And it's a fascist tenet, control the media. Similarly, Michael Eisner, who owns ABC and Disney, right? He also owns Hulu, wants to buy Fubo, which is another streaming service. So they need the Department of Justice to waive their antitrust laws, and they need the FCC to approve the sale. So don't tell me it was just that the station's making up their own mind. They wouldn't get what they wanted. They wouldn't be able to get richer without that. So that's the reality, okay? How ironic, though, that the person that the right has been touting as this free speech champion, when people are using their free speech to express their disdain for him, all of a sudden they're losing their jobs. I think doxing is so fucking weak. I was doxed, and it was pretty bad. I mean, people got personal information about myself, where my kids go to school. That happened a lot. So I think anybody that dox, if you're on the left or the right, I think anybody that does it is pathetically fucking weak. Is pathetically weak. So now there's this big push. Now there's this big push that anybody who speaks out about Charlie Kirk, what they want to do is they want to go after people for saying something like that. It's a joke. It's absolutely a joke. We talk about conservative hypocrisy all the time, but this is such a big one, right? It's such a big one. So this was the president at the same ceremony honoring a free speech warrior. Okay, hold on.
Not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them.
Wow.
I'm sorry. We got rid of, we took out 1,500 career criminals.
Wow.
1,500. If you have 3 career criminals, that can make a big difference. But I'm so proud of Washington, D.C.,
Wow.
and now we're going into Memphis, and we'll get that one straightened out fast. And then we're going into some others, but we're going to go do Chicago Department of Justice is also investigating networks of radical left maniacs. Just like Charlie and Erica made Turning Point hot, we are looking at a country that has the chance to attain a level like never before. Tariffs are making us rich again, richer than anybody ever thought was possible. And the only one challenging them are people that hate our country or foreign countries that are paying a price, because they did the same thing to us for years. The same commentators who this week are screaming fascism over a canceled late-night TV show where the anchor had no talent and no ratings. Last week were implying that Charlie Kirk deserved what happened to him. And the violence comes largely from the left. You don't hear that from too many people, do you? He did not hate his opponent.
That was supposed to be a eulogy. That was a memorial service that turned into a MAGA Maha rally. No, the overwhelming majority of politically oriented violence comes from the right. We've done this study. We went through the Wayback Machine. This is the data, by the way, that disappeared from the DOJ's website. The title of the article is "What the National Institute of Justice Research Tells Us About Domestic Terrorism. Militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated H-sides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists combined, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In this same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks in the U.S., claiming 78 lives. It's not even close. It's just more of the lies that they're willing to tell you. So I say that because this is who the right is. Right? We have to continue to talk about that. This is who they are. It doesn't matter what the data tells you. They'll hide the data. It doesn't matter that the president of the United States is standing there saying, I hate my opposition. Like we said before, when people who don't think CK was a racist, it's because they're racist. People who don't think CK or Trump is a racist or a bigot, it's because they're racists or bigots. That is just the reality. The problem, from my perspective, is that those same people are part of the us. It's those same people that also have to push back against them. And are they willing to do it? I don't condone, I condemn all forms of political violence. And I've yet to hear that from people on the right. They don't do that. Instead, they say, well, you know, he got what's coming to him. They forget that Donald Trump called Kamala Harris a fascist, Marxist. They forget the president literally just went on stage and said, I hate the opposition. That's the president of the United States. Absolutely no reason you couldn't go out there and attempt to calm things down. So Barack Obama, speaking of the whole cancel culture bullshit, said a couple days ago, after years of complaining, he's right. Of course he is. After years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. That's the whole story. So people on, you know, again, when I spend some time in right-wing spaces, you know, first of all, people who have, anybody who puts RIP-CK in the background is either a complete fucking idiot or they are just trolling. Or it could be both. That's just dumb. Problem is, you use that rhetoric, you use language like that, you fuel a fire that's already a raging inferno from political violence. And then the argument from the right is, well, you get what's coming to you. No. Tell me the name, and they keep wanting to point to Antifa. Who's the president of, who's the leader of Antifa? The president makes this statement declaring left-leaning organizations, radical left-leaning organizations like Antifa as domestic terrorists. Do you know what that does? That gives federal law enforcement the ability to round up just about anybody that they want. George Soros is the leader of Antifa. He's like 96 years old. What's he doing? Yeah, get off my lawn, you fascist! Seriously, literally gives them permission to do whatever they want to whomever they want. Should I get a knock on my door because I tell the administration, fuck you? That's the plan, isn't it? So you're for violence? No, little bucks, that would be you. You're the one that's for violence. That's the problem that we find ourselves in now, right? We find ourselves in this position now where it doesn't well, not now, but it's nothing new. It doesn't matter the hypocrisy that they live in because they just don't care. Because they're racist, because they're bigoted, because they're transphobic, because they're homophobic. Now executive orders declaring people who support transgender ideologies, they like to call it, are now considered threats as well. Goes back to the situation in Utah. Now they're claiming because the alleged perpetrator in this case, Mr. Robinson, because his mother said in recent years he became radicalized by left-leaning ideologies because he became pro-gay and pro-trans. Really? So then if you support someone who's a member of the queer community, that makes you radical? Funny that when you grow up in the LDS and you grow up a hardcore conservative Christian, in fact, in the LDS church, you can't take sacrament if you're gay. A religion, RTP joined us last week, a religion rooted in violence, okay? Using violent means to an end. Of course they're going to say he became radicalized. He was radicalized by his own church. He was radicalized by his family. He was radicalized by his community. He was radicalized by his faith. And then one day, perhaps, had a realization about his own sexuality and then realized there's people out here. I've been told to hate these people. Why should I hate them? I was lied to my entire life. I was lied to about how harmful they are. They're more kind to me than my family is. They're kinder to me than my church community is. They're kinder to me than my neighbors. So where's the radicalization? So then this is the question. So for people who on the right say that he was radicalized by the left, what you're admitting to then is if you support people who are different than you are, I don't give a fuck who somebody loves. We're all entitled to be miserable in our relationships, right? You're basically admitting that you do not give a fuck about anybody other than your Christian self. So where does the radicalization come from? Once again, it's from the right, and it's not even close. People are trying to point to Vance Bolter in Minnesota. Vance Bolter was appointed to an economic commission that had Republicans, Democrats, independents across Minnesota in an attempt to solve and address some Minnesota economic inequalities. They brought people together from all walks of life. He wasn't appointed initially by Tim Walz. He was appointed initially by Tim Walz's predecessor, and Tim Walz left him on the commission. Vance Bolter was a hardcore MAGA, had a hit list of like 45 names. His roommate said he's hardcore fucking MAGA. And the right wants to say, oh, he supported him. No, not true. You didn't talk about Nancy Pelosi. You didn't talk about Josh Shapiro. You didn't talk about bomb threats being called into to Obama subordinates. None of that. None of that. Instead, you want to focus on something from Utah in one of the most conservative states in our country. The alleged perpetrator attended one of the most conservative colleges in the country, raised by an incredibly conservative family in a incredibly conservative culture, exposed to radicalized ideology that if you support the gay community or if you are gay, then you don't even deserve to exist. That's the radicalization. And he acted. And Charlie Kirk was expressing his speech, and I don't think anybody should lose their life for doing it, but MAGA will never accept it, ever. They'll never accept it. So we have to move forward because these people are the threat. Eventually, Some of them might realize it. I doubt it, but they may. Okay. Thank you for letting me get on that freaking train. So Barack Obama made that statement about cancel culture, right? Well, then Caroline went on with Kayleigh McEnany on Fox talking about what President Obama had said. And here you go. Let me just read to you the statement again so we have that. After years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. He's absolutely fucking right. Exactly. So this is Triple K.
With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported, and I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kayleigh? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke in the United Kingdom. We were enjoying the beautiful and spectacular state visit that was put forth by the royal family and the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer. And I actually brought this news to President Trump's attention. He had no idea this was happening. It was a decision that was made by ABC because Jimmy Kimmel chose to knowingly lie to his audience on his program about the death of a highly respected man when our country is in a state of mourning. That was a decision that he made, and he is now facing a consequence for that decision and for that lie. And while I will add, and President Trump is right about this, Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are in the gutter. And this was probably also a business decision on behalf of ABC. I can't speak for them. I can speak on behalf of the President of the United States. And while he's pleased with this decision, we had nothing to do with it. It was ABC's decision, and it was certainly the right one by them.
Caroline, you mentioned that he chose to overtly lie about the motive. And it's not just, late night comedy.
So there you go. I mean, let's be real. I mean, Brendan Carr even went out publicly and said, like, you can do this the easy way, you can do this the hard way. It's just a bold-faced lie. Listen, I'm all about the free market. Isn't that what conservative politics is supposed to be about? The free market? Let the free market decide. Let the free market decide. The free market did not decide. This was about a money grab, plain and simple. As a reminder, Nexstar owns hundreds of stations across the country. They wanted to get bigger by buying a company called Tenga for $6.2 billion transaction, which would have increased their broadcast footprint across the country. To do that, they needed the FCC to approve it. Nexstar, Sinclair, those groups carry the Late Show or the Tonight Show. What is it? Jimmy Kimmel, whatever the fucking name it was. And because the president has had a hair across his wrinkly fucking dwarfy ass for years about Jimmy Kimmel, they just used this as an opportunity. And that's what happened. We see it. Doesn't Tenga make self-pleasure devices? I don't know. Do they? Does Tenga make? I don't know. Now that'd be a company I'd invest in. Hey now, that'd be a company I'd invest in. Look, we have to call it what it is, okay? It's a money grab. They can tell you whatever they want, and they're going to spin that lie. They're going to spin that lie however they can. We know the truth, okay? Seth Meyers is going to be next, followed by Jimmy Fallon. They're all going to be next. They're all going to go because they all using comedy. Because our president is so weak. Don't forget, he went after Twitter years ago because Chrissy Teigen tweeted, Donald Trump is a pussy ass bitch. And he lost his shit. And he went after Twitter. Okay? So miss me with your bullshit. So there's that. And there's a few, this is a follow-up on that because he was asked about, how did your administration pressure ABC to suspend Kimmel?
Did your administration pressure ABC to suspend Jimmy Kimmel?
No, not at all. I think Jimmy Kimmel's terrible. You know what suspended him? His talent. You know what else is really what? Take a look at this guy, his ratings. That's what got Jimmy Kimmel out. He was terrible. And didn't he lose? I saw a report where ABC lost millions of dollars with him. So That's what suspended Jimmy Kimmel.
Everybody from your administration.
Again, it's just a lie. We have Brendan Carr talking about it. Let's we have the ability to, these licenses need to be renewed. It's not a coincidence because Jimmy Kimmel's been railing on Donald Trump for years, all during the first administration, right? All since the inauguration, and now all of a sudden where there's this deal pending. Now it's an issue? Really? Okay, no problem. That's totally fine. I'm gonna pivot briefly on something for you guys. Actually, let me just check. Everybody, buckle up. All I can tell you. Look who's back. Please connect. Please. You might have to request again. My friend. I'm going to drop you down. Please request again. Talk about foreplay. Holy shit. She's going to request again. I'm going to bring her right back up. Let's try that again. Of all things to happen. We're going to try one more time. Let's see if we can get that to work. Technical difficulties, of course, on the big unveil. I'm trying. Come on, TikTok. Do us a solid. You might have to come back. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know either. I have no idea. You might want to restart, swipe out, restart, try that. That's been the surprise I was going to tell you about. So I know we all miss you. So everybody, hearts in the chat for Eve, because I got the news last night. That there may be a return. The red carpet has been rolled out, but I'm sure she'll request again in just a minute. Okay, so when I see that pop up, I'll bring it right back up. We covered that. Part of this whole, the corruption that it's on full display in the White House has a lot to do with all these things that we've been discussing for the past couple of weeks about these mergers, these media mergers, the connection to giant deals. The UAE gets chips, and then the UAE gets access to chips while investment goes into the Trump family corruption fund. Let's try again. Interesting. Not sure what's going on there. Well, that's a bummer. Yeah, it's still not working. I don't know, friend. I'm sorry. I don't know why that's not happening. You might need to maybe you need to update the app, or just scroll out entirely, restart. You might be missing an update potentially. I'm letting it load. I'm trying to let it load. Hey now. TikTok saying nope. I know you see her, we just can't talk. Yeah, you might want to think about you might want to reboot your phone too. That might help a little bit. Yeah, we had somebody else come in, so I think it's not a. I'm sorry. We'll keep trying. I'm gonna bring up. Actually, I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm just gonna run out real quick, guys. I'll just play this for you, and I'll be right back. Hang tight. Okay. I'm sorry we couldn't make that happen. Don't know what happened there, but I'm sure if she has an opportunity to come back, she'll come back. All right. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit. Did you wash your hands? Well, I did. I always wash my hands. Yes, thank you, though. The biggest thing that I think is necessary for us to discuss, well, there's lots of it's related, but I was disgusted by what I saw in the UK. Because of the fact, again, I'll share this picture with you guys. It's such a stark image. And I don't think people really understand the global impact. And I'm going to go through the menu for this event, the attendees, and then we're going to talk about what we're witnessing, or what this split screen is pretty telling. People on this table easily could solve this. People at this table, just small percentages of their combined wealth could solve this. And we talk about the JE, the Schmepstein situation. It's related because these people are protecting each other. These people are looking out for one another because as soon as the dream dies, as soon as they crack the veil, then this is what would happen, is they would all be exposed. So I don't see how that changes, sadly, until we change it, which is the us versus them, which is why I want to get into the kind of us versus them mindset. But first, before we do that, let me just check one more time, see if she's there. Eve, please come back when you can. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so this is reporting from the BBC. I want to say this, and I want to make sure I'm lagging. I don't think so. I just want to make sure people understand. All right. The state banquet is a spectacular showstopper of a state visit, a glittering feast with speeches, royal toasts, trumpet fanfares, and fancy food and wine. It's diplomacy served up with fine dining, a cut glass shock and awe approach to hospitality designed to make a visiting leader like President Trump feel special. Stroke it. The setting in St. George's Hall inside Windsor Castle is a remarkable sight, a mix of medieval banquet and Harry Potter film. Elaborately uniformed staff around the hall are as drilled as the soldiers who have been on parade during the day. The table settings, 5 glasses per person, are terrifyingly neat. For Trump's visit, the 160 guests sitting behind 1,452 pieces of cutlery were eating from a menu written in French, which translates as Hampshire watercress panna cotta with Parmesan shortbread and quail egg salad, organic Norfolk chicken bellatine wrapped in courgette with a thyme and savory infused jus, vanilla ice cream bomb with Kentish raspberry sorbet interior with lightly poached Victorian plums. Hang on a second. I'm going to put this back up. Guests had a generous wine list. Whiston Estate, 2016. Domaine Bonan de Martre, Corton Charlemagne Grand Cru from 2018. I don't speak French. Ridge Vineyards Montebello from 2000, and Roger Extras Sauvé de Reserve from 1998. After dinner drinks were drowning in symbolism, a 1945 vintage port in honor of Trump having been the 45th U.S. president, although he does not drink. There was a 1912 cognac from the birth year of the president's Scottish-born mother. If that doesn't seem enough, there was a special cocktail, the Transatlantic Whiskey Sour, which blends Johnny Walker with the bright citrus of marmalade with pecan foam and a toasted marshmallow on a biscuit. President Trump's banquet in Windsor Castle was conspicuously missing celebrity faces or screen stars. Were the people there in Hollywood or even West London who suddenly found they had to be somewhere else? That's not even a hearty royal perennial like Sir David Beckham or Sir Elton John. Inside, the guest list was heavy on political operators and tech bros. Apple boss Tim Cook was there. Interesting. Why would Tim Cook need to be there? Don't know. Press Baron Rupert Murdoch was sitting next to Sir Keir Starmer's key advisor, Morgan McSweeney. The small talk must be interesting when Trump is suing the Murdoch press for billions of dollars in the U.S. Like at a wedding, guests must be checking the nameplates around the ornately decorated table to see who they're sitting beside. The head of the table sits in the middle of the Windsor State Banquet, with the king and the president in the center of a dining table that is 47 meters long, not by coincidence. President Trump, as the guest of honor, was placed between King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales. The nameplate for Trump said President of the United States of America, although in capital letters, oddly reminiscent of his social media messages. Facing them is the First Lady, whose nameplate says Mrs. Trump, with Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales on the other side of her. The seating arrangements threw up some interesting groupings. There was the U.S. Ambassador Warren Stevens, flanked by Princess Anne on one side and Chancellor Rachel Reeves on the other. Prime Minister Keir Starmer was beside Stephen Schwarzman, mega wealthy CEO of Blackstone Investment Group. If conservative leader Kemi Badenoch was searching for ideas, she was sitting next to Sam Altman, chief executive of the artificial intelligence firm OpenAI. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was there. Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, who, by the way, was front and center in negotiating that deal we talked about before, the $15 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal, because the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times uncovered that level of corruption where they were attempting to get Qatari Emirates were attempting to get access to NVIDIA, exclusive opportunities for chips. At the same time, there was a massive investment going into the Trump crypto family's investments. Yeah, nothing to see here, though, right? U.S. Secretary of Marco Rubio was there, and Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff. Among U.K. politicians, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, golfer Nick Faldo, and athlete Dame Catherine Granger were among the more prominent sports figures. Jensen Huang, chief executive of NVIDIA, was part of the tech contingent. Interesting. On the walls are royal portraits in suits of armor, and the ceiling is studded with the coats of arms of Knights of the Garter. St. George's Hall was rebuilt after the fire of 1992, so perhaps like many stories about the royals, it feels new and old at the same time. According to the traveling U.S. press pack, the choice of music at the banquet reflected some of President Trump's favorite. Maybe they have their own message to politicians listening. It includes Nessun Dorma, meaning none shall sleep, and you can't always get what you want, by the Rolling Stones. This is a more detailed press attendees list. King Charles III, Queen Camilla, President Trump, Melania, Prince William, Princess Catherine, Paula Reynolds, chairwoman of the National Grid, the British energy company, Tiffany Trump, daughter of the president, Michael Boulos, the president's son-in-law, married to Tiffany. Tiffany, by the way, was when she was a year old, Donald Trump was commenting on her breasts. Yeah. Warren Stevens, the American ambassador to the United States, to the United Kingdom, and Harriet Stevens. Princess Anne, the king's sister, and Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence. Vivian Hunt, an executive at United Health. Prince Richard, Duke of Gloucester, and Brigitte, Duchess of Gloucester. Jensen Huang, head of NVIDIA. James Blair, White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Tim Cook, or Tim Apple, Chief Executive of Apple. Charles Woodburn, Chief Executive of BAE Systems, the British aerospace company. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his wife. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Catherine Granger, Chancellor of the University of Glasgow, former gold medal winning Olympic rower. Ruth Porat, the president and chief investment officer for Alphabet and Google. Susie Wiles, chief of staff. Steve Witkoff, White House special envoy. Emma Walmsley, chief of GSK. Bo Harrison, deputy chief of staff. Nicholas Luna, deputy chief of staff. Jane Fraser, chief executive at Citibank. Stephen Miller, Dan Scavino, Sir Richard Moore, chief of MI6. Haley Harrison, chief of staff to Melania Trump. Rupert Murdoch. Christopher Ruddy, chief executive of Newsmax. Sam Altman, chief of OpenAI. Satya Nadella, chief of Microsoft. Stephen Schwarzman, chief of Blackstone. Brian Moynihan, chief executive Bank of America. Caroline Levitt, of course, was there. Mark Burnett, TV producer, United States special envoy to the United Kingdom. Demis Hassabis, chief executive of Google DeepMind. And John Ratcliffe, CIA director, among others. Nothing to see here, though, right? Just nothing to see. Nothing at all. Let's try this again.
Can you hear me now?
Hooray! Yes, we can hear you now. Hooray!
Well, I figured it out.
It's so nice to see you. Okay.
It is so nice to see you. The problem is when you stay away too long, you forget how to turn on your microphone.
Oh, I don't think it was that. You didn't connect. It was really
Okay.
strange. You weren't connecting. So welcome. It is so nice to see your face. When I told you last night, it might be a little bit emotional for me, and I can feel it welling up. But I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. I missed you all so terribly, and I'm so happy to see you and this gorgeous chat.
Right?
Well,
Seriously, we've all grown up since you've been gone. We're now even smarter because of you.
I have no doubt. The smarts are overflowing in the Facts Still Matter family.
Guys, good to hear your
Oh
voice.
my gosh. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate you so much. I stayed away too long, and I feel the need for an alliteration. Do you feel that need?
Oh yes, I
Oh
have lots
yeah.
of needs, but that one in particular is really working for me. So yes.
Hey now. Hey now.
Hey now.
Well, let's do a little regularly scheduled mod announcement, shall we?
We shall.
Good morning, everyone. You'll know that I'm here to remind you to please support our fabulous hostess with the mostest. He's our spirited steward of the sound waves, spreading smiles with skillfully sprinkled satire while scrutinizing scandalous syndicated news sagas. And he's here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing you facts over feelings because facts still matter and they always will. So, if you have the means, let's help Fax meet his gift goal. And you can show support with the links in the link tree of his bio. Facts Still Matter is the tag for Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal, which is a great way to avoid the TikTok tariffs. You can find the Facts HQ and Discord link there as well. You can reach the HQ via factstillmatter.site, and you can check out all the merch, which is another way that you can show support. Like to encourage y'all to participate in a $1 daily donation drive. Giving a small donation truly adds up and it makes a huge impact. Now, if you're just looking for that fun free form for the Fax family to frolic, well, then Discord is the place. And if the link in the bio doesn't work, just try to copy and paste it into a browser or Google. And if that still doesn't work, reach out to a moderator. We will hook you up. When you join, please open a ticket. There's a couple quick questions, and if you need assistance with that, that's okay. Just ask in the unverified lobby and we'll walk you through it. Now, if you haven't already, please click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day. It helps the algorithm to keep us on the FYP. But the main thing that we ask of you is to interact in the comments as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, just click the copy link. It works the same as a share and no one will be the wiser. After this live stream, when you have a chance, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter there as well. You can like videos and rewatch the shows for any information that you may have missed. Subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators here on TikTok. Lastly, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
So two things. First of all, it's been too long. Thank you for that. And Drew made the comment I think that we need to remember. He said that we need to start a 900 number that we can call to get Eve to talk to us this way.
Well,
capitalism.
Drew, I adore you. Thank you for that. I'm out of practice, so I appreciate your grace.
Thank you for that. It was so great to hear your voice. And you know you've got a VIP seat whenever you want it. We love you, friend, so much.
Well, I love you all so much, and I thank you so much. I appreciate you. I've been listening and keeping track of everything, so keep it on, sir. I will talk to you later.
You certainly will. You ready? That was the best. Thank you, Eve, for joining us. It was so exciting, so exciting. Thank you for that. You guys are great for showing her some love. So again, the starkest contrast. Think about the people that are there. Think about the levels of corruption that exist within our government. And again, it's not just the current administration. It's obviously heavily rooted in corporate corruption and political corruption, et cetera. But the argument, again, from my perspective, is that it's us versus them. So the them was sitting around that table, not doing anything to solve what is an absolute disaster, catastrophic food insecurity and starvation crisis happening in Gaza. So I'm going to take you guys through some stuff. We're going to talk about this in terms, like we always do. We're going to talk about these things in terms of what it is that we know. What can we do about it, if anything? But just as a reminder, how bad it really, really is. So I'm going to start there. And we have to be careful some of the things we say and what language we use as connected to that particular part of the world, but I'll do my best. Since October of 2023, Gaza has been subjected to an intense conflict with large-scale military operations, airstrikes, ground offensives, and a blockade that has severely restricted movement of people and goods. The infrastructure has been heavily damaged. Many homes, medical facilities, water, sanitation systems, roads, bakeries, food supply chains have been destroyed or severely disrupted. There's widespread displacement. A large portion of the population has been forced to flee their homes, often more than once. Damage to housing. Over 90% of homes have been damaged or destroyed, leaving nearly 1.9 million people without a safe, permanent shelter. A very large percentage of their population, 2.1 million people, are displaced and or without proper shelter. All of the population is experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity. A significant number are projected to be in the phase 5, which is as high as it goes, catastrophic food insecurity, meaning famine-like conditions. Famine has been confirmed in at least one of the provinces, including Gaza City. Many hospitals and medical facilities are damaged or non-operational. There are several shortages of medical supplies, fuel needed for generators, and clean water. Water and sanitation, including clean drinking water, is scarce. Sewage and sanitation systems have broken down in many areas. Desalination plants and water pumping require electricity, which has been cut off or reduced drastically, exacerbating water shortages. Children severely affected. Malnutrition is rising sharply among children under 5. Many children without schooling, some living without basic health care. Famine and malnutrition will escalate, especially for children, pregnant women, and other vulnerable groups. Outbreaks of disease, waterborne, communicable due to unsanitary conditions, lack of clean water, collapse of waste management and sewage. It worsens every single day. And we've got people deciding which vintage bottle of wine they want to drink from. Here. I know, Kipper's angry. How they would like their filet mignon prepared. The same issue exists in our country. Not as that severe. And again, this is stark. And I think it's, we have to be able to call it what it is, right? I mean, this is the fight that we have globally, from my perspective. If you care about human rights, this is the state dinner. This is the photographs of the state dinner. I gave you the list of people that were there. The amount of wealth just around this table alone, and then the faces of children starving. And the justification for so many people in the world to just sit back and say nothing about this. And I see some folks in the UK here. Your tax dollars. So, domestically, what authoritarians want, what authoritarians need, what fascists need, is the fight to go this way, which is why they come up with all this divisive language, which is why they come up with all this rhetoric, which is why they try to continue to lie to their base, which is why they want to suppress the speech, which is why they want to control the media, because they don't want people to know. You know what's next? Coming for your guns. That tracks. So let's talk about domestic policy regarding food insecurity. So I asked Grok for this. I'm lukewarm on AI because it impacts kind of what I do for work, but there's times when I think it's necessary. It helps to summarize a little bit. So I asked about food security in the United States. Okay. Food insecurity is defined when households lack consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life due to limited financial or other resources. It is measured annually by the USDA, Department of Agriculture, through household surveys. Roughly 14% of U.S. households, or 17 million households, experience food insecurity in a given year. 17 million people in what's considered the wealthiest country on earth, the greatest country, the most powerful country in world history, human history. 17% of houses in our country are classified as food insecure. Yeah, I used grok only because it's a fair point, Toodle. It's a fair point. I wanted to use grok for this because I think people will criticize it to say, well, it's biased. Well, fucking it's AI. I don't know how it works. Anyway. About 5 to 6 million households face very low food security, meaning normal eating patterns are disrupted. People skip meals, cut portions. Parents go hungry so their kids can eat. Children are particularly affected. Millions live in households where caregivers worry about affording food. Some of the key drivers: low wages, inflation in food and housing. It's about to get worse. It's getting worse. Stagnant income growth relative to costs. Employment volatility, layoffs, unstable schedules, seasonal work, lack of access to health care, social disparities, higher rates among Black, Hispanic, Native tribes, and rural households. Limits in programs like SNAP, food stamps, WIC, school meals leave some families undersupported. Southern states and parts of the Midwest have higher rates than the national average. Households with children, especially single-parent families, are at greater risk. Veterans, people with disabilities, and seniors on fixed incomes also face elevated risks. Again, southern states, part of the Midwest, primarily vote Republican. The expectation from the new economic policy in the big, beautiful piece of trash act is that states supplement more of these programs so the Fed doesn't have to do it. The states now that are being asked to do that are already dependent on other states. So if they can't feed their people now because they have a budget shortfall, how the fuck are they supposed to do it in the future? And people in those states voted for it. Consequences. Again, regional and demographic trends. Southern states and parts of the Midwest have higher rates than the national average. Households with children, especially single-parent families, are at greater risk. Veterans, people with disabilities, and seniors on fixed income are at an elevated risk level. Health impacts: higher rates of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, developmental issues in children. If it's truly about MAHA, make America healthy again, then how about this? Oh, I don't know, something radical, like making sure no one fucking starves. How about that? How about expanding SNAP benefits? How about expanding access to Medicaid and Medicare? How about things like that? How about things like that? Instead of lying to the American public about the cause of autism. So the weird part to me, this is the hypocrisy that exists now, is that there are people that are out there voting. People said, I want to vote for RFK. And you can go, you watch The Good Liars, or whoever else will go out into red communities, which is still something I want to do. If anybody wants to get me on the road, I want to go out and talk to people face to face. I want to have that conversation and remind them, your state doesn't get federal support. Your state can't afford to pay its own bills. Your state relies on donor states. You guys can't make up your budget shortfalls now. You rely on your other states to do it for you. Now, the federal government has cut access to those funds from donor states. You are on your own. So how the fuck are you going to feed the citizens of your own state? The people, your neighbors, you, as a matter of fact. How's that going to work? How is that going to work? Educational outcomes. Food insecure children face concentration, behavioral, and achievement challenges. Your kid goes to school hungry. How do you expect them to learn? Again, economically, the states that don't support programs like this are the ones that have lower test scores. Families live in poverty, higher rates of maternal mortality, higher rates of infant mortality. It's all economic. And who benefits? A lot of the people that were sitting around that fucking table. A lot of the people that are buying up land, venture capital firms buying up real estate. The same people, these people are the one that are benefiting at the harm and decimation of the middle class in our country. And it's not even close. It's not even close. Economic costs, long-term healthcare expenses, and reduced productivity are estimated in the tens of billions of dollars annually. Another argument for universal healthcare, the loss, because people don't go to the doctor. So not only would we all save money, we would recover money that was already lost to the tune of billions of dollars annually. SNAP, largest federal anti-hunger program ever, roughly 40 million participants. And people on the conservative right are cheering, claiming waste, fraud, and abuse. I've said this before, and I like this analogy. People on the left, ideological left, that care about things like this. There could be 100 people standing in front of us, and we will feed every single one, even though one might not deserve it. On the right, the ideological right, the same 100 people are standing in front of you, and you won't feed any of them in case one person doesn't deserve it. It's that simple. We often talk about this in terms of what does our country prioritize? I'll ask the chat. There's 1,400 people in here. What does the United States prioritize? Go ahead. I'll be curious. What do you guys think? Money. Money. Racism, cruelty, money, the rich, capital, money, power, money, the wealthy, power, racism, weapons, war, firearms, tax breaks to the 1%. It's just a fundamental difference in beliefs. I want to feed people. I don't want human suffering when it can be fixed. Again, I've said this before. Call me radical, because apparently I'm radical. Apparently I'm a radical leftist because I believe that people in our country, people around the world, but in our country, I'm radical because I believe everybody should be guaranteed healthcare, food, water, and shelter. That is now considered radical from our president. That is now considered radical from the conservative movement. The same people that are down here that live in states that are the largest recipients of programs like I just described. I'm voting for you. I'm voting for you. I'm voting so that your kids can fucking eat. 17 million households in 2025 in the United States of America. 17 million households are food insecure. 17 million households are not necessarily sure where their next meal's coming from. 17 million households have parents making sacrifices, not eating themselves so their kids can eat. And somehow that's radical? Somehow that is so extreme that the president of the United States says, I hate my opposition. Sir, your opposition are people who want to feed children, to house children, to make sure children have shelter, to make sure children have access to clean water and clean air, to make sure children have access to an education. That's what's extreme? Those people are the ones that you hate? Again, SNAP. Largest federal anti-hunger program ever, feeds roughly 40 million participants. I don't give a fuck if there's fraud. I don't fucking care. This has been studied. I talked to Crow about this. I've talked to other people that are in the industry who know. Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP fraud, Less than 5%. And the bulk of it comes from clerical shit, not on the recipient side. And then you celebrate it. Like you guys celebrate. The right celebrates. We're cutting funding because of all the waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, 100 people standing in front of me, I want to guarantee every single one of them eats, even if one is committing fraud. I don't give a fuck. 100 people standing in front of the right, you don't want to feed any of them in case one is committing fraud. Because that's what you're telling people by the way you vote. That's what you're telling people. Again, Joe Biden, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. WIC and school meals. They provide nutrition to children and mothers that expanded during COVID. Emergency food networks, food banks, pantries, charities play a growing role but rely on donations and volunteers. One of the things that I do in my work is I write federal grants for a lot of programs, and I'm affiliated with a lot of food banks around New England. It's something that I just care about. I just generally care about. I help them acquire monies. And I helped a large food bank not far from where I live by accessing the Melinda Gates Foundation. So it took work to get that information. So it took private entities to fund these programs. And now they're going to depend on these programs even more because the federal budget is cutting funding for programs like SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare. You guys are so focused on this fraud. You're missing the big picture. You're missing what's at stake because it's a cycle. People don't have access to food. Their health suffers. When they do, they eat shit. As a society, we eat horribly. So what ends up happening is this cycle starts. Access to hospitals are closed. Life expectancy drops. Obesity increases. It's one thing after another. And it seems like the conservative right, the pro-life party in our country doesn't care. I'm asking you to understand that it's not us that's the enemy. It's them, the ones that continue to take advantage of you. Recent debates, expansions during C-19, like increased SNAP, for example, they reduce hunger. But many of those programs expired because Congress wouldn't approve it. Republican-led Congress wouldn't approve the expansions, the continuation, the increase in federal funding for SNAP programs. Why? Why? I want to know why. Give me an argument. Give me an argument as to why we should be cutting programs like SNAP. When we get raptured, is there food? Maybe. For those of you who vote for this, are you volunteering your time at a food bank? Are you walking into a local food bank to help your neighbor? My kids and I, when they were young, around the holidays, which is sad that it was only around the holidays, but we went and volunteered at food kitchens. We went to food banks. Like I said, I work with two food banks now. Two of my primary clients that I work with. Their stories are horrible. Families, parents literally starving themselves so their kids can eat. In America, in the United States of America in 2025, parents are not eating themselves so they can feed their kids. And we've got a president talking about a ballroom. And we've got a president sitting down at a state dinner, fighting over which wine they should drink, inviting all these people around him who fueled this campaign, who are getting richer and richer and richer and richer and richer on our backs. Food insecurity has been this rising tide, but it just continues to get worse and worse. There are some factors. Across all U.S. households from 21 to 2023, food insecurity, percentage of households that at some point had too little food, ranged from 8% in New Hampshire, a state that my feelings on New Hampshire, but they did vote blue in the last election, to upwards of 19% in Arkansas. States with particularly high food insecurity tend to be in the South and parts of the Midwest. For example, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Kentucky, and Oklahoma are the highest for food insecurity. For Connecticut, Massachusetts, specifically, food insecurity is around 7.5%. So the states that continue to vote to cut federal programs because of what they've been told is waste, fraud, and abuse are the ones that have the highest rates of food insecurity. Again, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Kentucky, Oklahoma. You can use other scales, and those same states will show up on other scales. Highest rates of violence, highest rates of homicide, highest rates of domestic violence, highest rates of childhood poverty, highest rates of infant mortality, highest rates of maternal mortality. It's all related. The economic fuel that these people are taking advantage of comes from the fact that people in those states, the ones that are suffering, vote for people who are approving tax cuts for this group of people. Make that make fucking sense. There's a few moments in our recent history that have led to a lot of this. The Great Recession from 2007, 2009, economic downturn, high unemployment, federal stimulus packages, including increases in SNAP benefits via the ARRA of 2009. Food insecurity rose during the recession. The enhanced SNAP benefits helped cushion the blow for many households. Federal government responded by an increase in SNAP benefits. What did Republican legislators try to do? Cut it. Why? 2010's passage of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. Who was the president? Who controlled Congress at that time? Thank you. Among other child nutrition policies, economy gradually recovered. Food insecurity declined somewhat as economic conditions improved. Also, improvements to school meals and child nutrition programs helped. Who are the ones that are constantly around behind increasing benefits like this? Expanded access to Medicaid, expanded access to parental leave, expanded access to SNAP and programs like that designed to feed kids. It's always been liberals. It's always been Democrats. Now, my criticism is that they've not gone far enough. They've not stood on it. They've looked for compromise. I'm sick of compromise. I'm sick of it. To the C19, 2020 to 2021, severe economic disruption. This is what happened, and then as a result. Severe economic disruption, high unemployment, major federal relief, including pandemic, SNAP emergency allotments, and stimulus checks. Despite shocks, food insecurity did not explode as much as feared due to strong relief efforts. In fact, in 2021, it reached a multi-decade low because of those supports. Thank you, Joe Biden. Post-COVID, as many of the temporary relief programs expired and food, housing, energy costs rose, inflation, SNAP emergency allotments ended. Why? Because Republicans in the Congress cut it. Why? Food insecurity rose again. Why? Because Republicans in Congress wouldn't fund it. As they went through the same thing we're going right now, continuing resolutions, they cut funding. They cut it. They cut it. Let's talk about it from a state-by-state perspective. Food insecurity is tightly connected to poverty, and there are clear differences when you compare Republican-leaning states that are red, Democrat-leaning states that are blue. Below is a structured comparison. Okay. The reason I want to do this is because I want to remind people that everybody, all of the us versus them, need to figure out a way. I'm not saying breaking bread. I'm asking you, MAGA conservatives, and the pro-life crowd to understand what is happening. I'm asking you to put your red hat away. We don't have to have a conversation. Quite frankly, I'm not interested in talking to you until you realize this is the common enemy. The people that you continue to vote for in your own states that have the highest levels of all the things we're talking about. Crime, homicide, domestic violence, maternal health, paternal health, poverty, low education rates, food insecurity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you continue to vote for this. Let's do a breakdown. Food insecurity, the national average is roughly 14%. Poverty rate is roughly 12.5%. Excuse me. Strong correlation. States with higher poverty rates nearly always show higher food insecurity rates. The states that have the highest rates of poverty and food insecurity, because again, the numbers track the poverty rate compared to food insecurity rate. Arkansas, 19%. Mississippi, 18.5%. Louisiana, 17%. Oklahoma, 16%. Those are the top four. They're all Republican. They're all led by Republicans. They're all represented in Congress primarily by Republicans. Every single one. On the other hand, states that have the lowest rates of poverty and food insecurity. Massachusetts, 8.4%. Minnesota, 8.9%. New Jersey, 8.5%. California, 9.8%. See a coincidence? Conversely, those states, Mass, Minnesota, Jersey, California, highest education rates, lowest rates of poverty, lower rates of crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On average, Republican states average 16% food insecurity of their population, whereas Democratic-leaning states average 10%. California is fourth on the list as far as lowest rates of food insecurity. So are we not going to address the data again? MAGA, this is affecting you. This is not some lib trying to come up with a talking point. You keep voting for these people. You can look at every blue state. It's all the same. Again, the average is a 7-point difference between food insecurity, poverty. Higher, 7 points higher in red states than it is in blue states. Exactly. They can't, your own states are not doing your job. It gets deeper. It gets deeper. Poverty rate, okay, according to the Census Bureau. Highest rates of poverty, and it's really close, like we just discussed. Highest rates of poverty. Mississippi, 18.2%. Louisiana, 17%. Arkansas, 16%. West Virginia, 15%. States that voted Democrat in the last election. New Hampshire, 7%. Minnesota, 8%. Massachusetts, 8.7%. And Maryland, 8.7%. States with, on average, Republican-leaning states have a poverty rate of 16%, whereas Democratic-leaning states have a poverty rate of 9% on average. How many times do we have to point to the data? How many times do we have to go through this exercise? How many times? This is pulled from census data and through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, because they track where federal subsidies go to support programs like SNAP. And in the Big Beautiful Bill Act that's now signed into law, one of the fundamental tenets was to give more power of funding these programs back to the states. The states that already don't fund it, even with federal money. Economic basis. Many red states rely on lower wage industries like agriculture, extractives, service jobs versus blue states with more high wage sectors, tech, finance, biotech. Again, the 85 to 90% of the GDP comes from blue states. Safety net. Blue states often expand federal programs at the state level. They increase Medicaid. They increase access to SNAP, while red states opt out of expansions or keep eligibility stricter. Think about that. Blue states invest in expansion to access to federally funded programs. And what do they see as a result? They see improvement in those sectors. Shocker. Red states vote to cut it, and what do they get? Higher rates of poverty, higher rates of homicide, higher rates of infant mortality, maternal mortality, higher rates of food insecurity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So red states voting for people who will vote to give corporations and the rich tax cuts. Those same red states, because they're doing this, are putting people in power that are cutting access to the basic fundamental tenet of food. Food. Republican-leaning states tend to have a higher poverty rate and higher food insecurity rates even after adjusting for cost of living. Even after you adjust for cost of living, it's still higher. Lower poverty rate exists in Democratic-leaning states, including food insecurity. Housing and childcare is expensive in those states. I don't disagree with that. What do you got? Hold on a second. So much for that shoe and hat. Why does it have to be like that? Why can't people just understand that this is just real? It's right in front of us. It's right here. It's literally right there. And the argument is, well, all the fraud exists in the system. Like I said, 100 people in front of me, I want to make sure everybody's going to eat, even if one's committing fraud. Republicans say, conservatives, the pro-life Christians say, I'm not going to feed any of them because one person might be committing fraud. That's why we say it's a cult. How does then specifically, what did the Triple B Act do in regard to the issues that we just discussed? Cuts to SNAP funding. The bill cuts nearly $300 billion from SNAP over 10 years. This is described by some analysts as a deep cut, the deepest cut to SNAP in its history. We've already seen an increase in food insecurity in our country, and they cut SNAP benefits by $300 billion over the next 10 years. Why? Why? For certain SNAP recipients, the law increases work requirements for able-bodied adults and expands age brackets and imposes limits and time limits. There are already work requirements. There's already a pretty significant protocol that you have to go through all the time. Crow's taking us through it. It's already there. The law requires states for the first time to share in or entirely fund SNAP benefit costs. This puts more financial pressure on states. The states that already don't fund their programs, even with federal support, now they're going to be expected to do it. So we know that we've lost 70 or 80,000 manufacturing jobs. We know that the farming sector is getting gutted. We know that we're losing, we lose small oil and gas companies are going out of business. All that shit has happened. We know all of that. We've seen it. A lot of those jobs are in red states. So those people are going to be out of work. And the federal programs built and supported and advocated for by liberals that would help them through this stretch are now being gutted. And they voted for this. They voted for it. They voted for it again. They vote for it again. They vote for it again and again and again and again and again and again. I just got a little bit of a flag. So let me do this real quick.
TikTok. It is our intention during these live broadcasts to only provide fact-based information to the absolute best of our ability. We strive to never spread misinformation or to platform those that do. Opinions of our guests or commenters are theirs and theirs alone and do not reflect those of the host. Hate speech is not allowed, and we are diligent about policing it. This platform is for educational purposes only. We now return you to our regularly scheduled pandemonium, already in progress.
So, this really cool hat that I got from the Alchemist Brewery in Vermont that made a couple years ago, right after Ron DeSantis passed the Don't Say Gay law in Florida. So the Alchemist came out with a beer that said Just Say Gay, and our dog just got a hold of it. So, yeah. Anywho. That's why Kipper does not need a friend. I share this stuff so passionately because it's really not that hard to fix. It's not. It's not that hard to fix. It just has to come from 78 million Americans realizing that not only are they voting against their best interests, their individual best interests, but they are voting to continue to allow children in our country to starve. I know, they see it as, I don't want the black community to have access to things that I have. We'll call it what it is. I don't want brown people, black people, queer people, disabled people, women. I don't want them to have things that I have. A system built by people who look like me to benefit people to look like me, that also protects people that look like me. Conservative Christians, conservative Christians don't care. Just don't care. I am asking you to look at the situation in your state, MAGA voters. The situation in your state that cannot pay its own bills. Your states that literally are now being asked to subsidize programs to feed kids when you weren't doing it before. Now the expectation is you're suddenly going to start doing it. So children in your communities, and people want to say, oh, it's these large metropolitan centers. The impact is very rurally oriented because cuts to Medicaid and Medicare programs are going to close rural hospitals. We're already seeing it. And your answer has always been, well, waste, fraud, and abuse. In addition, new or expanded work requirements. This is in the Big Beautiful Bill Act. For certain SNAP recipients, the law increases work requirements for able-bodied adults and expands age brackets and imposes limits and time limits. There already were. This is the worst part. They connected rhetoric. There's already these things already existed. There's no justification for any of this. The law requires states for the first time to share in and or fund SNAP benefit costs. This puts more financial pressure on states. The Thrifty Food Plan, which is used to set maximum SNAP benefits, is prevented from being updated based on reevaluations. Updates must be cost neutral. So only inflation adjustments, avoiding substantive charges, even if market and or dietary and or consumption realities change. They're not going to do cost of living increases for benefits. As inflation gets higher and higher and higher, 2.9% now, they expect it to go up. So then why should blue states continue to send any money to the feds? Why? Why should they? If it were me, I don't know the legality behind it. I have no idea what the mechanisms would look like. I wouldn't. Why is inflation getting higher? Respected because of Trump policies. That's why. Yeah, because of Trump economic policies. You guys blamed it on Joe Biden. I'm going to blame it on Donald Trump. And then eligibility. Some lawfully residing immigrants could be eliminated from eligibility. People who are contributing to the cause. People who are working. Immigrants. Brown-skinned people. Don't forget. Ooh. God, we can't let them have any benefits. Jeez, we can't let them have food. That'd be horrible. What about Biden? Exactly. Thank you. Number of people losing benefits. Many households will see reduction or loss of SNAP benefits. The Urban Institute estimates 23 million U.S. families will lose some or all SNAP benefits under the changes. 23 million households will lose access to food. We're not talking about cable. We're not talking about high-speed web. We're not talking about central air. We're talking about food. Loss of income effect. SNAP benefits are part of a disposable income for low-income households. Removing or reducing them directly reduces their ability to cover basic needs, potentially pushing more people below the poverty line. And as we just discussed, the states that have the highest rates of poverty vote Republican, well above the national average. States that vote primarily Democrat are well below the national average. So who gets impacted the most? The waste, fraud, and abuse is a dog whistle, in my opinion. The right wants to use it because they want to say, listen, we know that these black communities are being fraudsters, that they're taking advantage of the system. So white people, you got to unite because we can't let them continue to do that. And then the racists in the party are like, yeah, absolutely, sign me up. Right, the Gilded Age. B Will 952, you're a troll. Get the hell out of here. But so here we are. Same story all over again. The ultimate vote against the best interest. Doesn't seem to be a lot of care or compassion there. That's for sure. No empathy. But empathy is just a made-up word, right? Yeah. Alec, it does not look like you're connecting, friend. If you want to try again, I'll bring it back up. The restriction on updating the thrifty food plan beyond cost. So this is the benefit adequacy, and it's categorized as expected effect on food and or insecurity or hunger. Okay. The restriction on updating the thrifty food plan beyond cost of inflation means SNAP benefits may lag further behind actual food costs. As food costs have been rising, the gap will worsen, making it harder for people on SNAP to afford enough food. They can't afford food now. They use SNAP to supplement. Food cost is going up, but the SNAP rate is not. So this bill is literally going to be contributing to more food insecurity that affects kids. The expected effect on poverty and income, households could face increased trade-offs, less for other needs like, housing, utilities, health care, which could increase hardship, medical debt, or reduced health outcomes. This can perpetuate poverty and leave millions of more people houseless. And we know that Brian Kilmeade thinks that the houseless people should just be, what was the word he used? Involuntary lethal injection. So Republican policies, conservative policies, driving more people into poverty, driving more people into food security, and driving more people into houselessness. Are those all people who are criminals? Should those people then be involuntarily lethally injected? Who's the enemy? Is it me? Are we the threat? Because I'm sitting up here every single day saying I care more about conservative kids than they do.
Hey,
hello, Alec. How are you today? I can, yes.
Perfect. Steve, correct?
Yes.
Steve, hey man. I hang out with RJ a lot. I know you
cool
debate with him a lot, and I have more of a question away from the GUN violence, which he usually sticks on topic with. My question to you is more towards Supreme Court issues. With the 14th, the 1st, the 4th, the 5th, and most likely the 22nd being violated, does the Supreme Court actually have to physically make a decision, or could lower courts continuously appeal each other until, let's say, Trump leaves or, dies, or the next person who gets elected comes up? So, really, it's just the question of does the Supreme Court actually have to do their job? Is there something pushing them?
I don't think I understand your question. Ultimately, in our system, the Supreme Court is the last stop in the judicial branch.
I understand that. I'm talking about more okay, so let's say his EO trying to take over the 14th and ending birthright citizenship. Does the Supreme Court actually have to tell Trump, no, you can't do that?
No.
Because right now, would they just set precedents, which basically says that, the 14th stands. Do they have to make a rule that says, no, you can't do this? Or can Trump just do whatever he wants?
He can do whatever he wants until somebody stops him.
Okay,
so what you see that's why the issue with lower courts ruling and that injunction that was handed down by the Supreme Courts, because lower courts basically, and I'm not a lawyer, but the way the process would work would someone would challenge it from a constitutionality perspective, saying there needs to be a plaintiff. It could be a class action case. It could be an individual plaintiff saying, listen, I was born here. Now I'm being told that my birthright citizenship does not apply. And then that starts the process. Somebody sues, and it's appealed, and eventually it will work its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. So if a lower court, an appeals court, for example, makes a ruling, the Supreme Court could say, we're not going to hear it, which means that ruling would stay in place, or we are going to hear it, and then they could make a decision to rule, either in support of the appellate decision or to contradict the appellate decision.
Okay, then can I give you an example that I'm thinking of? For instance, he just came out with that EO maybe a couple weeks ago about the first getting 1 year in prison, if you burn the American flag.
Yeah.
If somebody goes to jail, correct. I believe the Supreme Court's already decided that back in the 1980s. So
Texas v. Johnson. Yep.
Correct. So it shouldn't stand in any specific way, but if he is able to go and arrest somebody, put them in jail, and then say, courts start fighting about it left and right, and he goes to jail as from the lower court, does the Supreme Court have to, I feel like my example's already crumbled upon itself. Does the Supreme Court have to step up and say, no, you can't do this? Or like you said, do they have to say yes or no?
I have an attorney on. I have an attorney on retainer who just joined the chat. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Hi. So to answer your question, Alec, actually, somebody did exactly the day after he issued that EO. Somebody did exactly that on camera. They burned a flag right in front of the White House.
And I think he's been on our show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe he's ostensibly he got arrested. I do not know what happened to that arrest. So let me first explain. An EO is not a law.
Right.
You cannot. A president cannot simply will a law into existence by creating an EO around it. It is absolute fucking nonsense. He's playing tiddlywinks with reality and losing. Right. So what I am curious about, and I don't know the answer to this, is whether that arrest was whether the local DA, the Washington D.C. DA, even allowed the prosecution to go forward, because there's something called prosecutorial.
I heard he got arrested and was let out within like 24 hours.
He didn't get arrested for burning the flag. He got arrested for open fire in an area where it wasn't allowed.
Okay.
Because he was on the show. He was on the show. So I think that right there tells you that even in DC, they don't have justification to indict him or charge him for burning the flag, which is protected speech.
Yeah. Somebody would have to actually be arrested in order for the process to start. And I don't believe that there is a single district attorney in this country who is willing to go down that road. And from a jurisdictional perspective, the feds cannot.
So
I burn the flag.
Alec, Dave knows this. This is just him, Trump, trying to flex. That's all it is. Trying to say that, I'm going to tell my voters that even though the Constitution, even though the Supreme Court has ruled in Texas v. Johnson that burning the flag is protected by speech, he's just trying to use it. Because I agree with Dave. I don't see there's a prosecutor that's going to take that.
Yes.
I just can't imagine that.
The only way that I see somebody actually bringing Trump to task on this would be, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, would be burning the flag in a national park, because national parks are federal jurisdiction. They're not state jurisdiction. So basically, walking up to a I don't know who enforces the law in national parks. I don't know if it's the Park Service, but whoever.
Rangers, Park Service, yeah.
Yeah, whoever it is, basically taking the Zippo, burning the flag, and say, okay, arrest me, motherfucker. Because it's time.
Well, let me challenge that. Let me challenge that, because if we're going to use the national park as federal territory, what Jay did in D.C., that's federal territory. He burned the flag in federal territory.
No, I'm not sure, because D.C. is a sovereign. They prosecute their own crimes as a separate. If he did it on the White House grounds, I think he did it in front of the White House. If he was on the other side of the fence, then yes. But on that side of the fence, I believe it's still the jurisdiction. I am not sure, don't live in D.C. I believe that is still so D.C. is a weird place. Depending upon which side of the street you stand on is whether the local cops arrest you or whether the federal marshals arrest you.
Right, but I think it's federal territory. D.C. is federal territory, which is the justification for him using the guard. So
They are,
you know that.
except they have. It's all very muddled. DC is a mess, but they do.
Yeah.
They prosecute their own crimes. If you commit a criminal act in DC, you are going to be prosecuted by the local, the local DA, whatever they have there. You're not going to be prosecuted by. Yeah, you're not going to be prosecuted by the Department of Justice. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
In order for the Department of Justice to have jurisdiction, you either have to do something on federal property, which is an army base, but that would be UCMJ, or something like a national park, or there has to be diversity jurisdiction, which is not possible because you are committing the act in one place. You're not going from. I don't know. Maybe if you take a truck full of flags, light them all on fire, and drive them around the country, maybe then they will have diversity jurisdiction. I don't know. But look, the bottom line is that the way that people used to test unconstitutional laws would be that they would violate that unconstitutional law, get themselves arrested, and then test it. This is during the 60s and the 70s and the 50s. The ACLU used to do just that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so back to Alec. Your original question was the Supreme Court. Ultimately, something could be. And you jump in, Dave, if I'm wrong about this. Ultimately, something could just continue to get appealed up the chain. Eventually, land at the Supreme Court. They wouldn't necessarily have to take the case, though. So it's.
Yes.
Is that right, Dave? So
yes.
That's the process, Alec.
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen, I'm just going to, again, just thinking out loud, I think that the lower court would have to go with the precedent of Texas v. Johnson, as would the circuit court. And then if I was any sane Chief Justice would not take the case up and basically let the precedent stand, let Texas v. Johnson stand, because they would be asking for a whole lot of nonsense if they did that. But, the sanity of the Supreme Court is questionable today.
Indeed. Does that help, Alec?
Yeah, that makes more sense. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I got to go. Thanks.
Thanks, problem. Alec. See you later. Appreciate it.
Later, Steve.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you, buddy. See you later, man. Take care.
Bye.
It's good. It's good to have an attorney on retainer. Somebody said you paid Dave with an old retainer. Ugh, nasty. That would be nasty. Okay, so I think we've addressed that. Back to what we're talking about here. Quantitative estimates and scale. SNAP cut magnitude: $287 billion over 10 years. 23 million American families impacted. More than 5 million families will lose upwards of $200 a month on average in food assistance under the bill. Feeding America estimates the cost could eliminate 9.5 billion meals per year for people who are already facing food insecurity. Who gets disproportionately affected the most? Low-income families, especially those already near the poverty line, families with children because some work age exemptions are being tightened, lawfully residing immigrants who may lose eligibility, individuals who rely heavily on SNAP and Medicaid together. There's a large overlap between those two on SNAP and Medicaid. Cuts to both exacerbate the risk. States with higher costs of food in urban areas, expensive regions, will feel benefit adequacy more acutely. Why? Why does that? Why are we doing that? Pro-life Christians, why are you voting for that? Because you are. Why? What happened to feeding the poor? Feeding the hungry, housing the poor? What happened to that? Why? Tell me why. And you want to say it's waste, fraud, and abuse? Why? Let's now break this down into recipients versus donor states. Okay? A donor state pays more in federal taxes than it receives in federal outlays. Defense contracts, federal jobs, Social Security, Medicaid, SNAP, infrastructure. Donor states. Recipient states receives more federal money than its residents and businesses pay in federal states. The states who are the highest donor states: New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Illinois, California. Why? They have large, wealthy tax bases, Wall Street tech high earners, but comparatively fewer federal transfers per capita, which means that they pay more than they get. Recipient states: Mississippi, West Virginia, Kentucky, Alabama, Louisiana, New Mexico. 5 of the top 6. The same data. We can track this. Higher rates of poverty, those states. Higher rates of food insecurity, those states. Higher rates of firearm violence, those states. Higher rates of domestic violence, those states. Higher rates of maternal mortality, those states. Higher rates of infant mortality, those states. Lower education outcomes, those states. Why? Why? Why does it have to be that way? So that's what we have now. The categories that I just listed: infant mortality, maternal mortality, poverty, food insecurity, that's as it sits now, with prior to SNAP benefits being cut. The language in the BBB specifically says states are going to have to flip the bill more. So what happens to people in those states who already can't afford to live? And you can use the argument, we can talk about this collectively and objectively. We can say the machine, the corporate class, the billionaire class, absolutely, that affects all of us. But people in those states keep voting for people who don't take care of their own. Like how, what? You can bitch and moan about blue states all you want. Blue states don't need red states to pay their bills. But the opposite certainly isn't true. Red states can't pay their bills now. And the only way you can do that is through federal subsidies paid for by blue states. You're welcome. Vermont's neutral, right on the line. Mississippi, West Virginia, Kentucky, Alabama, Louisiana, the top 5. Same shocker that you would look at those states and find out that those states are also the highest levels, highest rates of gun violence, highest rates of poverty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this talk about this soft secession that's been discussed. Yeah, you're right, Victoria. We haven't even, that's a good point. We haven't even added energy subsidies in there yet. And by the way, a lot of the energy subsidies would have come from those communities that they decided to invest in alternative energy sources. And because they were scared to think that, the Green New Deal, can't have that, you would have saved money. You would have saved money. But nope, can't do that. Can't do that. Meanwhile, what you fail to realize is some of the largest investors into alternative energy and sustainable energy like wind, solar, etc., guess who they are? Big oil, because they see the future. Here's the breakdown. Mississippi receives $2 in federal funding back for every dollar they send in. West Virginia, $2.06. Alabama, $1.90. Kentucky, $1.83. Florida, $1.24. California, on the other hand, receives 99 cents back for every dollar they spend. Illinois, 88 cents. Massachusetts, 83 cents. Connecticut, 74 cents. New Jersey, 62 cents. New York, 91 cents. So blue states receive less back than they spend. Red states receive twice as much in many cases. Mississippi, $2.09 for every dollar that they spend. They get $2.09 back. Your citizenry is starving. Your citizenry is living below the poverty line. Your citizenry is committing more crimes. And you're going to point to blue cities? Sorry, doesn't work that way. Without the blue cities in your state, it would be worse because that's where the economies come from. New Jersey, 62 cents they get back from the feds. Connecticut, 74. Mass, 83. Illinois, 88. New York, 91. California, 99. Mississippi, 209. West Virginia, $2.06. Alabama, $1.90. Kentucky, $1.83. Virginia, $1.72. And Florida, $1.24. Why? Why should blue states continue to flip the bill? You know why we should? Because we fucking care. We care about communities in those states because we're empaths. Oh boy, a word that doesn't exist. I don't have all the states, but we can pull the list. Blue states, by and large, on average, contribute more than red states do. Red states, in fact, red states don't cross the threshold. Red states are recipient states. Blue states are donor states. Why? Why are red states not investing in their citizenry? Biden made sure red states got more help because he cared. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Expanded SNAP benefits, expanded access to Medicaid and Medicare. What has the Trump administration done? Want to punish blue states for what? For what? For what? Let me just check here a couple things. Don't forget, guys, we're crowdfunded here. If you like what we talk about here, don't forget we're trying to position ourselves to move over to YouTube. That's necessary. It's looking at the landscape. So if you want to help participate in that, we're going to be launching a little bit of a campaign later this week. But short term, if you want to help, the best way to do that is to find the various things that are out there in the appetizers, as they're like to be called. Let me just make sure I got this covered here. Hold on. Okay. Hector, my dude. Hey there, handsome. Hey, dude, you get that label. Well, thank you, buddy. Hearts in the chat for Hector. Thanks for your $10, bud. Appreciate you. The argument, I don't understand it. This is one I've just never understood. I've just never understood it. The only justification, and this is what the conservative right wants to remind you, that you're supporting people who despise you. All of us are down here. Okay, all of us are down here. All right, all of us. Let's for imagery purposes. Actually, Legend made another background too. This one's great. The billionaire yacht crushing the country. It's true. But we're all down here, right? We're all in this. All of us, all 350 million of us are down here. We're all fighting every single day. We disagree on a lot of shit. We're fighting amongst ourselves because these people are ripping us off every single day. I didn't even got into the wealth gap yet. You're gonna be so fucking angry, and I want you to be angry. I want you to. I love you, buddy. I want you to be angry because you should be. People in red states, you shouldn't be angry at California. California's paying your bills for you. People in Kentucky and Oklahoma, why are you mad at New Jersey and Massachusetts and Illinois? They're paying your bills for you. If somebody knocked on your door and said, you know what, I'd like to pay your mortgage, or I'd like to help you out with your bill this week, would you say no? Would you ask them where they're from? You would say, thank you. You would say, thank you. That's what blue states are doing for you. Blue states are feeding your kids. Blue states are covering your electric bills. Blue states are making sure your roads get fixed. Why the fuck would you turn that? What's the don't look a gift horse in the mouth? Is that the analogy? Or is that the colloquialism? Yeah. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. What's going to happen now? Exactly. You're welcome, red states. What's going to happen now? We have the big, beautiful Bill Act. We have it signed into law. Prior to it going into law, the red states were already upside down economically. They already couldn't feed their citizenry. Already. And now, again, what's the language in the bill? Let me see if I can find it. Just want to make sure I got it right. Hang on one second. I want to make sure I get the language right. One of the provisions within the BBB, the law requires states, for the first time, to fund SNAP benefits. This puts more financial pressure on states. You voted for people who literally just made your lives harder. It's not some radical leftist idea. You know what? It is radical. I'm going to fucking own it. Hashtag radical, because I believe people in rural states, red states who voted for Trump, their children should be fed. That's fucking radical. I believe that you should have access to health care, food, water, and shelter. I'm radical because of that. I'm a radical, ideological leftist because I believe that your kids should eat. Hashtag radical in the chat. By the way, there's a hashtag radical shirt in the merch store. Go get one. Seriously. Like, what the fuck are we fighting over? Why the fuck are we fighting over that? Oh, I know. Because these people want you to, as they enrich themselves. The right messaging machine, the conservative messaging machine, used waste, fraud, and abuse to justify tax cuts for the billionaire class. Plain and simple. And 78 million Americans bought it. They bought it. Overall estimate, the net effect from the BBB. It will increase poverty and increase food insecurity overall, particularly for vulnerable populations, more households falling below the poverty line or deeper into poverty due to income losses and increased out-of-pocket costs for food and health. People are going to drop below the poverty line because of this bill and most significantly impact food and health care. Are you fucking kidding me? A sizable rise in food insecurity rates, a combination of more household losing support, benefits that cover less in practical terms, and more competition demand on charitable food systems. Food banks. I work with one of the largest ones in the state. They already struggle making sure that they can feed the populations that they support now. As more and more people lose their jobs, as more and more people lose access to benefits that are subsidized by blue states, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Meanwhile, we have this. Meanwhile, we have a $200 million invested to do a gold ornate patio on the lawn of the White House. Meanwhile, we've already seen the designs for the UFC fight on the White House's grounds. Why don't people get it? Exactly, let them meet Kate. Why don't people understand this? Why? What is... I know why. Potential knock-on effects. Health, schooling, long-term earning capacity, increased stress, more incidences of violence, more self-unalivings. It just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. We're not talking about some radical left idea about, whatever that might be. Think about the most extreme thing. Think about the most extreme thing out there. We'll use firearms. For years, the right was told that the left is coming for your guns. You know who will? Fucking Trump will. Because that's what autocrats do. And so here we are. We're passing a bill. We're passing a bill, signing it into law. To communities that are already suffering are going to suffer more. And because the right has been told they need to hate trans people. They need to hate black people. They need to hate brown people. They need to hate the entire queer community. And they should double down on their hatred towards women. All because of that, they voted to starve their own fucking family. Their own family. Why? Candace Texan, I sent you an invite. I'd be curious if you would come up and talk. Because you made a very, very interesting statement. And I'd be curious to unpack it a little bit. You probably won't accept, though. Maybe you will. The data tells us the exact opposite, Candace. Just to say they won, just to say they own the libs. You understand that this is affecting you. This is, to me, yes, this was the state dinner at Windsor Castle, and these are the children that are starving in Gaza. You won't address that. This is globally, right? But this happens here. We've got the billionaire class in our country who just benefited from the BBB, significantly small number of our population. We have children that are starving in our country too. Starving. Starving. Why? Why? Why is that acceptable to anybody? I am so tired of the Christian right making these claims that they care about kids. You don't. There's higher incidences of abuse coming from those communities, higher rates of violence against children, especially against marginalized communities, higher rates of violence against women, crimes against kids, the worst of the kind. We hear about it all the time. Overwhelming majority of the crime committed in our country is committed by white men, period. Full stop. There's no debate. Overwhelming examples, overwhelming incidences of politically oriented, ideologically oriented violence comes from the right. It's not even close. And I see the weak cowards, civil war's coming. Pfft. You guys will run like the cowards you are. You know you will. Because you don't stand for anything. I stand for feeding kids. I stand for protecting marginalized communities. I stand for demanding that women should have access to their fucking body, that trans people should exist, that you can love who you want, that people in our country are suffering so that billionaires can make more money? Jesus Christ. I don't mean to double down on this shit, but we have to start talking about the wealth gap. And we have to talk about the impact. We have to talk about why it is that people that are in the communities that are already suffering vote for people who are making them suffer. We know that the government shutdown's coming, right? So I was curious about, let me see. The initial funding bill passed the House last week. The same version died in the Senate. Democrats introduced a counter. That failed. I'm just going to give you the differences, okay? Jesus, it's just wild. So what the Republicans wanted to continue was the funding that, especially that a lot of it that was connected to the BBB, right? So we're going to continue to cut these programs like SNAP, like Medicare, Medicaid. Democrats asked for, again, I'm going to make this bold statement, okay? For the past 50 years, Republicans have created economic policy that benefits the rich. There's no doubt about it. Mic drop. They've led to the biggest wealth gap increases in history. Republican-led policies. Democrats have done more for the middle class, but not nearly enough. Not even close to enough. So we've all suffered because our political system is there to continue to support corporate donors. We can objectively look at the data. We know that the bulk of jobs created have come under Democratic administrations. We know that any expansions to social programs have happened under Democrats. We know that any changes to healthcare systems have come from Democrats in a positive way to ensure more people, the ACA, but not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. Not even close. Okay, so this is what the Democrats proposed as a counter. Well, let me break it down side by side. This is what the Democrats proposed. Healthcare priority. Extend the enhanced tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. Reverse the cuts to Medicaid and other healthcare programs that had been proposed in the budget reconciliation or reduction bills. Keep authorization in place for healthcare programs and veterans affairs that are expiring. Protect Congress's power of the purse, that is to ensure that spending and rescissions are decided by Congress rather than by the president, and push back against pocket rescissions the executive branch attempts to cancel or reduce programs without legislative approval. That's the bulk of what was in the Democratic CR, and the Republicans voted against it. They voted against, literally, they voted for cutting benefits, including Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, and then an opportunity to continue to keep the government open. Democrats said, listen, please just continue the ACA credits. No, can't do that. Don't want to have brown people, don't want to have black people having insurance coverage. Republicans, in their bill, largely a clean stopgap measure, meaning that it aims to keep federal spending cuts at its current level, cutting food programs, cutting Medicare, Medicaid, without adding any new policy riders or making major changes, so that it serves just to keep the government open while Congress continues negotiating long-term spending bills. Because of recent concerns over threats and or attacks to public officials, the GOP version included added security funding for the executive branch, the Supreme Court, and related protections for judges, congressional members, and executive branch officials. It does not include large expansions of programs or restorations of proposed cuts to health care, SNAP, etc. The Democrats have pushed for that. Republicans had an opportunity to keep the government open, would have required them to say, okay, maybe we should relook at feeding kids. Maybe we should relook at, not kicking more people off healthcare. But no, they couldn't do that. Instead, we're going to put rhetoric that we have created, rhetoric that we have fueled, violent rhetoric coming from the Oval Office. What we're going to do, we're just going to want to beef up security for those people. Exactly. They want more security for themselves than they do for kids. This is the MAGA shutdown. Democrats objected because the GOP version does not extend enhanced child tax credits under the ACA or reverse proposed cuts to Medicaid that darkened the impact of earlier budget proposals. It's that simple. Got to get the filibuster. Ain't going to happen. Government's going to shut down. They're out. They're on recess. They're gone. They're out of here. They're gone. They're going to have one day to come back. Government's going to shut down. And the right's going to blame the Democrats because, yes, the Democrats are required to keep the government open. But we know. I don't want people to lose sight of this. Democrats propose a solution. Listen, pull back some of the cuts you've made to Medicaid, and please don't touch the ACA because you're already going to make it worse for people. The Republicans said, nope. Not going to do that. Nope. Okay. That's good. Fucking crazy.
Hello.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Talking about the whole situation, and I've been thinking about this, and the amount of money that these corporations, etc., donate to politicians to, buy whatever. If they would just spend the money they're donating to politicians in paying their people, etc., it'd probably even out.
That's probably true. Yeah, I mean, well, anything would help. Anything. Yeah. I mean, what's the number? 20 million homes. 20 million homes in our country are food insecure.
Yeah.
20 million.
Yeah. And the same thing with healthcare. The healthcare lobby is the only reason we don't have universal healthcare, because the healthcare insurance companies would go out of business if we had universal healthcare. All of these for-profit healthcare companies would go out of business. So the insurance lobbies.
Well, they wouldn't though. They would just have to be. They would be reassigned. That's been part of the myth that the right likes to say, is that they would be put out of business. There would still be work to be done. There would still be private insurance. If people wanted private insurance, they could get it.
Yeah, true. But it's so crazy because happy, healthy people are productive people.
Correct.
Unhappy, unhealthy people are not productive.
Especially kids. Send your kids to school hungry. What's going to happen? Think about you get hangry. Think if you don't eat. Because there are children. We're expecting them to learn. Right? Yeah.
It's like they want us to be absolutely miserable. They want to take away people's PTSD meds, ADD meds.
Correct.
All of that stuff. They literally want us to be miserable.
They do. You're right. Thanks for jumping in today, Heather. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Talk to you later.
All right.
This then goes into policies connected to the wealth gap. So we talk about The wealth gap refers to the distribution of total assets, housing, stocks, retirement accounts, business ownership, minus debts across households. It's different from the income gap. So the income inequality is how wages and salaries are distributed yearly, and then the wealth inequality is how assets accumulate over time. This is just disturbing, okay? And we have to talk about it because this is the opportunity, in my opinion. When you start to break down the numbers and what we get for what we pay for, as the 1% in particular, because we certainly know the TCJA exponentially impacted the positive, the 1%. It's not even close. The right's going to debate it all they want to, but they're going to lose the argument. Wealth distribution in the 1980s. In 1980, wealth inequality was already significant, but far less extreme than today. According to the Federal Reserve and the World Inequality Database, the top 10% of households, this is in the 1980s, the top 10% of households held about 65% of total U.S. wealth. The top 1% held about 23%, and the bottom 50% together owned around 5 to 7%. That's bad then. It's worse now. Middle-class wealth, mainly home ownership and pensions, was more stable because post-World War II housing boom, unionized labor and wage growth, and then widespread defined benefit pensions. That was the birth. That was the boom of the middle class. Suburbs were being built. Highway systems were being built. Unions were growing. You could live on one income, right? There's a lot of societal issues, of course, then, but economically, that was a pretty positive time for our country. Again, goes without saying, not for everyone. Since then, between 1980 and today, the U.S. wealth gap has widened dramatically. So again, in 1980, the top 1% held about, 15%. The top 1% held about 15% of the growth. According to the studies from the same group, by 2023, the top 1% controlled 45% of the wealth, up from 20% in 1980. The middle 40%, roughly 50 to 90 percentile, saw their share fall from 30% to 27%. Stagnant wages, rising housing costs, student debt, decline of pensions, eroded wealth growth, shift from pensions to 401ks. Who benefits from the 401ks? The bottom 50% stagnation. The bottom 50% held just 2% of the wealth in the 2010s compared to 12% in the 80s. Top 10% in the 2020s have 70% of all wealth. The top 1% has 35%, and the bottom 1%, the bottom 50% has 2%. Again, the top 10 has 70%. You break it down even further, the top 1 has 35% of that, and the bottom 50, us, has 2%. Median household wealth the racial wealth gap persists. Median white household wealth 6 to 8 times that of median black and or Latino households. Generational gap is also stark. Boomers control over half of the U.S. wealth, while millennials, despite being the largest adult population group, control less than 10%. This is what's happening in front of us. This is a both sides conversation. And the overwhelming economic policy approach that's caused this comes from conservatives. Trickle fucking down economics. That's never worked. It's the same old. What wealth inequality feeds into? More political power, social mobility, and intergenerational opportunity. Rising concentration at the top risks creating a hereditary aristocracy of wealth. Why? Why does it have to be like this? Why do people continue to vote for what they see as economic change? Hang on a second. Let me just check something. Republicans, conservative voters in our country, have been conditioned, have been indoctrinated, have been radicalized into believing that the billionaire class is looking out for them. And Donald Trump, who is one of the most corrupt individuals to ever serve in the presidency, is a man of the people. He's a man of the people. We're going to talk about Tom Homan in just a minute. I'll get into that story because that's just another example of the corruption that we see in this current administration. The crypto company, World Liberty Financial, started by the Trump family and the boys, of which Donald Trump has not fully divested, because who's going to hold him to it? They've made billions of dollars since the launch. Billions of dollars. And 20 million American families are food insecure. Members of administration getting wined and dined at the State House dinner, at the state dinner in the UK. Wined and dined. The best of the best. Pampered. While 20 million Americans' families are starving. Members of the cabinet taking advantage of these policies. The donors to the Republican machine, to the Trump administration, are taking advantage of the tax cuts that they just got, enriching themselves twofold, while children in America are starving. Starving. It's only going to take 2 or 3% of legacy Trump voters to say, that's it, I'm done. Don't vote. I'm not here to ask you to vote for a Democrat. Plenty of issues with the Democratic Party, but it's nothing like this. Just don't vote. Look your kids in the eye when you've lost your job because of tariffs, or you lost your job because companies can't afford to keep you anymore because of the cost of labor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You'd lost your job. You walk up to your kids and you apologize to them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I voted for this. I'm sorry you're going hungry tonight. Or don't tell them that you're not able to eat. You get a large pizza for a family of 4. You and your wife aren't going to eat, so your kids can. In the United States of America in 2025. That's fucking real shit. That's real. That's real. That is happening. It's not some liberal talking point. That is happening. I'm sitting here right now as a progressive telling you that I care about that. I care that your children, I care that you're not going to eat. I do. I really do. That's what empathy is. I care. I can tell you right now that we have, we've got 116,000 followers. We have 1,500 people in our lives every single day. The overwhelming majority of people that come in here care too. We're sitting here saying, listen, we don't think anybody in our country should starve, especially kids. We don't think anybody should have to choose between feeding their kids and feeding themselves. We've got empathy to spare. All right? We do. Your president just went on the record saying, I hate the opposition. I hate my political enemies. Do you hate us too? Do you, MAGA? Do you hate me? Do you hate me? Why? Because I want your kids to eat? Because I'm sick and tired of you being ripped off by the same people that are ripping us off? Because I believe that your children should have access to food, water, shelter, and safety? Why? That's so bad? I'm sick and tired of our kids dying in classrooms. I'm sick and tired of people being gunned down in the streets. I'm sick and tired of it. I just want your kids to eat. That's it. Just want your kids to eat. I don't want any child anywhere, but I don't want any child in America to not know where their next meal is coming from. And I don't want parents to have to worry about that. You could lose your job tomorrow. You could be houseless tomorrow. And the news show that you watched, hosted by Brian Kilmeade, says that you should be involuntarily lethally injected and killed. And that doesn't get him taken off the air? And you think what Jimmy Kimmel did was so bad that you're screaming about it? But you're not screaming over the fact that your elected officials, the ones that you elect, align with giving these people and these people more money. While these people, children in the most part, starve. Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you get it? I don't care if you disagree with 99% of what I say. I don't care. The 1% that I hope you do care about is that you're voting for people who are writing policy to starve your children. Full stop. Cutting benefits to SNAP. Cutting benefits that already don't supplement in red states. Asking red states to flip the bill, to cover the loss. Red states can't afford to feed their kids now. You just made it worse. It started with Reagan. It did. It started with Reagan. Reagan cut the top marginalized income tax rate from 70% to 28% and then cut capital gains taxes. That's where it started. Bush 2001 to 2003 lowered the top income tax rate again, also with state taxes. Trump 2017 reduced corporate tax rate from 35 to 21%, and it just went from 21 to 15. In 45 years, the corporate tax rate went from 70% to 15%, all under Republicans. And the criticism for Democrats is they did not fight hard enough for it to go back up. Again, compromise. Bicameral government requires bipartisan agreements on big policy. Plain, long story short. Reagan era deregulated banking and financing, savings and loan securities. What happened then? The people at the top, the fat cats, the whales, made boatloads of cash because no one was watching. How the Democrats contribute to this? They repealed Glass-Steagall, allowing banks to merge commercial and investment banking. Bad. Commodities Futures Modernization Act, deregulated derivatives. Bad. These fueled the 2008 financial crisis, which devastated middle-class housing wealth. Combination of Republican tax cuts and some deregulation from the Democratic side led to that. Who benefited? The richest. Who got harmed? The rest of us. In short, it's like the Republicans accelerated the growth of the 1%, and the Democrats didn't do enough to stop it. That's my objective opinion. Because the Republican policies benefited the people that were always benefits of it. They're the ones that bailed out everybody. Now, I could be critical objectively of the Obama administration for having to bail out the banks. I understand why they had to do it. They had to. They really had no choice. But we could be critical of that, saying how many times we have to continue to do it. How many times? And the lessons learned from that recession fueled COVID recovery because they didn't inject enough capital into the system to keep people in their homes, keep people paying their bills. So I get it, but how many times do we have to do it? That's on like, let the fucking shit burn. So nihilistic progressivism, that's my new political platform. Let the fucking shit burn and then get the fuck out of the way. Put women in leadership positions and let's fix this fucking shit once and for all. There you go. That's my message. Let the fucking shit burn, get the fat cats out of the way, put women in leadership positions and get the fuck out of the way. Now I want to talk about it in terms of job creation because it's relevant, because it's all relative and it's relevant. We've had these discussions before, right? So there's been, since 1980, since Reagan, there's been 4 Republican administrations and 3 Democratic administrations. Republican are Reagan, Bush, and Trump. And the Democrat side, it's been Clinton, Obama, and Biden. Okay? So we've got the data. So these are policy positions, right? So Reagan, this is job creation, because this is all related. From 1981 to 1989, he averaged 2.1 million jobs per year, created 16.5 million jobs. George H.W. Bush, so we had 12 years of Reaganomics, so actually 14 years of Reaganomics, right? He created only 0.7 million jobs per year. Hey, what do you got? Okay, whatever. It's gone. Bill Clinton, from 1993 to 2001, created 22.7 million jobs, 2.8 million per year. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009, less than 0.2 million jobs per year. Obama, from 2009 to 2017, created 1.4 million jobs per year. Trump, 2.7 million jobs added, only less than half a million per year. And then Biden, the biggest run in a 4-year history in the American presidency. Not only the jobs lost by COVID, but additional jobs, $4 million a year. 3 Democratic administrations created 50.2 million jobs since 1980. 3 Democratic administrations. 4 Republican administrations created less than half that. What other economic indicators do conservatives who continue to vote conservative need to see? You combine the massive food insecurity issues we have in our country, and how children are starving, and how middle-class families have been gutted because Republicans don't give a fuck and Democrats haven't done enough. I think that's the line that I'm comfortable saying now. Republicans didn't give a fuck and Democrats didn't do enough. Because there is absolutely no economic indicator. And I'm not an economist, but I'm studying this shit. There is no economic indicator that says the American middle class is better under Republicans than it is under Democrats. There's none. There is none. And again, Republicans don't give a fuck. They fund the corporate machine, and Democrats didn't do enough to stop it. Okay? Buttery meals. Exactly. All right. So let's talk about CEO pay versus average worker pay from 1980 to 2025. So I wanted to build this story for you because we can talk about trickle-down economics. We can talk about the promises of prosperity under the Reagan administration. And in the early days, there was prosperity, but the behind the scenes, we all knew it was going to happen, right? We all knew it was going to happen. CEOs of baseline in 1980, okay? CEOs of large U.S. firms earned about 30 to 40 times the average worker's pay. Pay was more salary-based with some bonuses. Stock options and performance pay were relatively rare. Since 1980, in the 80s, deregulation plus tax reforms encouraged stock-based compensation. The CEO to worker ratio rose from 30 to 40 times to 60 times by the late 1980s. In the 1990s, explosion of stock options. So stock options, they called it the golden parachute, all those things, stock options and even ownership. That's where a lot of the compensation shift happened. Explosion of stock options. By 2000, so in 1980, it was 30 to 40 times CEO pay to average worker pay. At the end of the 1980s, it went from 30% to 60%. By the end of the 1990s, 300 to 1. Average CEO pay crossed $10 million while median worker pay stayed around $40K. Okay. In the 2000s, the dot-com crash cut CEO pay temporarily, but rebounded quickly. By 2007, so just in 7 years, at the end of 2000, at the end of the 1990s, it went to 300 to 1. By 2007, it went to 350 to 1. Strong stock market drove record CEO pay. Again, the ratio went from 300 to 350 to 1. Buckle up. You ain't seen nothing yet. Through 2025. Pandemic initially cut CEO pay in 2020, but stimulus and stock rebounded, sent it soaring. By 2023, the CEO to worker ratio went from 300 to 370 to 1. Average S&P 500 CEO earns $16 to $22 million per year. The median worker makes 55. Since 1980, the CEO pay growth is 1,200%. The rest of us, 20. We've got 4 Republican administrations. Their primary directive, economically speaking, are tax cuts for the rich. So tax cuts for the rich and corporations, lowered revenue, increased the deficit. Meanwhile, CEO wages increased by 1,200% from 1980 to 2023. And meanwhile, the rest of us, 20%. Stock-based compensation since 1993, tax laws. Financialization, CEOs were rewarded for stock price increases, often via buybacks. They're beholden to shareholders, right? These people. Meanwhile, this is going on. People at this table since 1980 saw their wages increase by 1,200%. While this is going on, people at this table intentionally inflating their assets. Again, beholden to shareholders while this is happening. Okay. You know what's also happening simultaneously? Decline of unions. A tenet of fascism. Right? Corporate power prioritized. Labor power suppressed. Corporate power prioritized. Labor power suppressed. Goes back to this picture. Oh, by the way, that was my trip yesterday. That's not far from where I live. That was my Zen moment. Back to this. 1,200%. Okay? 1,200%. 1,200%. Their salaries and wages have increased since 1980. The rest of us, 20%. What have they done? What have they done for us? We've seen an increase in poverty. We've seen an increase in food insecurity. We've seen an increase in crime. We've seen an increase in maternal mortality. We've seen an increase in paternal mortality. Our wages are stagnant. Theirs have gone up 1,200%. This is us versus them. The TCJA, which was the continuation, again, it cut corporate tax rates from 35 to 21%, and they want to lower it even more so that these people get more money. Why is that so complicated? Why? This is our country. It's not theirs. It's ours. And again, I'm not going to break bread with Nazis. Sorry, ain't going to happen. But we're all getting raw dogged by these motherfuckers. You get these plans, like there's these stories about these bunkers that these fucks are building. You know, Bill Gates and Larry Ellison and Zuckerberg, they brag about their bunkers that they're building. And kids are starving in our country. Kids are starving. And the problem is you could walk up to your MAGA neighbor and say, I don't understand why you're allowing kids to starve. Make them answer that question. I'm not voting for that. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you actually are. Especially those of you who live in red states. If you're a blue dot out there, I feel sorry for you. I really do. Yeah, exactly. Violet, kids are starving or getting shot in our country. Number one cause of death, firearms, and 23 million American homes don't know where their next meal's coming from. Aren't we supposed to be making America great? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Kind of thought that was the goal. Well, but the president has the answer. When asked about what he's going to do to help millions of unemployed young men find work.
Go ahead, please.
President, question from Newsmax. Last year, before you took office, there was an estimated 6.8 million men not actively seeking work of prime working age. So if you and Secretary Lutnick could talk about the efforts your administration is taking to help our American gentlemen get back to work.
Yeah, well,
The question she asked was, there's lots of American men who don't have work. What are you going to do to help them find jobs? Listen to this answer.
what we're doing is they're building plants all over the United States. And frankly, because of tariffs, we're taking in trillions of dollars. And countries that have ripped us off for years, and everyone knows this, countries that have ripped us off for years, like nobody's ever been ripped off before, they're now having to pay up. They're paying a lot of money to America, and we're reducing taxes with that money, and we're doing things that we were never able to do before. So it's you're going to have a lot of jobs. The jobs are being created right now, and the tariffs are protecting our country. And we didn't use, tariffs were used against us, but we didn't use them against others. But we're really better at it than anybody else, and we will have taken in trillions of dollars. Nobody's ever seen anything. Even people that were against the tariffs, now they see the way they're working. And by the way, with no inflation, with no problem, we're just building up cash, and we're using that cash to reduce taxes, reduce debt, and other things. It's a great thing to watch. And
what?
Your honest reporters are saying they've never seen anything like what's happening. Our country is becoming very rich again only because of tariffs. If I didn't get elected, this country it was a dead country. Look, we were a dead country a year ago, and now we're the most successful, most vibrant country anywhere in the world.
So was that an answer? Wasn't the question, Mr. President, what are you going to do about the millions of Americans that you promised were going to get jobs? What? Couldn't you at one point, I've said this before, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. If during 2020, when COVID hit, if he was an actual leader, he could have gone in front of the American public and said, we are the United States of America. We are going to solve this problem. We are going to be the beacon for the rest of the world. He could have even come out with MAGA fucking masks. Could have fucking owned it. Could have owned it. But no, he couldn't do that. Had to lie and blame everybody else for all of it. And here he is now, again, lying to the American people. Inflation is up. Gas prices are up. Energy costs are up. Food is up. And he's going to say there's no inflation? And people in MAGA circles are going to believe him, even though you're paying more. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. Should be our Russia, Russia, Russia. Then he talked about honest reporters, and we know the credibility of the administration, right, or the lack thereof, and they want to use the word credible. I'm going to get into Alex Acosta's testimony last week in front of Congress, because we're not going to let the Epstein files die. No fucking way. Is that going to happen? I found this interesting little sound because he was being interviewed by a member of the press, somebody who's on Fox News, and they're talking about some of the economic numbers. And again, his entire game is to discredit everyone. And he's running out of people to discredit because no one takes him seriously anymore, including Safe Spaces. So this is this is interesting. Here you go.
We're going to have numbers that like nobody's ever seen before.
When do you think
that
people are going to feel that? Because we do see polling that doesn't pull well in the economy. The recent Fox polling said 52% say the economy is worse under this administration.
So again, that's a Fox poll. 52% of surveyors say the economy is worse than it was a year ago. Interesting.
Unemployment at the highest rate in 4 years. Groceries made a big jump in the last term. So how is that? You're looking forward with these plans that you just talked about. When will people feel that, Mr. Trump?
Okay, now remember, he's not going to address the issue that 52% of Americans are struggling. He's not going to address that. Instead, listen to what he does.
Actually start opening. I mean, right now we're building them. And, Fox polling, I have to tell you, I've told you before, it's the worst polling I've ever had. It's always, during the election, they had me winning by a little bit, not by a massive amount. And Fox polling, I've told Rupert Murdoch, go get yourself a new pollster because he stinks. And this is for years now. But I will say that we have all of these things are being built. We're going to have numbers.
Fox is his base. Newsmax is his base. They keep coming out with the same information. So now he's going to tell people who are watching Fox with this interview, you can't believe this poll. Okay, I did a poll, and I am 99% popular with people who don't know shit. Because, don't forget.
So we have the worst education almost in the large world. The world that people know about.
Right, the world that people know about. And then there's this, of course.
Smart people don't like me.
Yep. So what's going to happen? Thank you, Sarah. What's going to happen now, right? What's going to happen now? We have all this economic stuff that we've gone through this morning. We know that inflation's up. We know that jobs are being lost at record rates. We know the unemployment's the highest it's been since the last time he was in charge. All of that kind of shit. All of it. We know that the world's popping off. We got Russia sending drones into NATO countries. We got promises made that there's going to be a response. All of it. And conservatives don't give a fuck. Don't fucking care. Because you're in this to own the libs. You think it's like a fucking air hockey game at your local arcade. You don't care that people's lives are suffering. You don't care. You do not care, because it's the hypocrisy to me that is the worst part about it. There was an interview on Fox over the weekend. I don't know who this person is, and I'm going to get into the Tom Homan story because that's just fucking wild. So I don't know this gentleman's name. His name is Brad Palumbo. He was on the Will Cain show. This is the story. This is it. This is great. Talks about the hypocrisy as it relates to Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, because this is all related. Right? It's the billionaires protecting the billionaires so those same billionaires can get richer and richer and richer while we all get fucking raw dogged. Here you go.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, if they had just decided to get rid of Kimmel, so be it. As a market decision, I don't think he's been funny in at least a decade, and I think what he said about Charlie Kirk was gross. But I think it's really reprehensible, and I do think it's an attack on the First Amendment for the FCC chairman to speak almost like a mafia boss and say, nice license your member stations have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, right? He said his exact words were, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Correct. Yeah, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. Okay? Sure.
If you don't take action on Kimmel, that's jawboning. Well, I don't think either of us know that for certain. We can't get in the minds of the executives.
I'm repeating the reporting from both the Hollywood Reporter and the Wall Street Journal.
Right, and the show's been on air for 22 years, and it was canceled the same day he made those threats. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it had no effect at all. Doesn't change the fact it is wildly inappropriate for an FCC chair to speak like this. Well, I think a lot of your critiques are legitimate, but I don't want the government coming in and saying for ideological or even fact-based disputes, right? In the same way, let me paint you a picture for a moment. Imagine that after the 2020 election, Biden's FCC had said to the 500 radio stations, which are also regulated by the FCC, that carry Fox News Radio, that listen, you guys got to get rid of this Sean Hannity guy, or take action on Hannity, or easy way or hard way, or those licenses could be in danger. I would call that an attack on the free press. I would call that an attack on the First Amendment, and I think you would too. But the only difference here is that the partisan loyalties are switched here. And if we have double standards, well, we don't have any standards at all. Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's all we have been saying. I think Jimmy Kimmel's funny. I think he got a little stale, but let the free market decide. Imagine the scenario that Brad Palumbo painted there. Post-2020, Steve Bannon show, Biden FCC says we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Pressures these stations, they take them off the air. The conservative right would be losing their fucking mind. And it's not a coincidence. He's railed against Jimmy Kimmel forever. Friends, don't forget, we are crowdfunded here. There's 1,100 people. If a few people gave $1, we'd bang this right out, and I wouldn't have to talk about it anymore. Don't forget, there are some really cool items in the merch store. Go pick one up. You can find that at factsstillmatter.site. All my socials, by the way, are at Factsstillmatter. Please don't forget, there's a gifting goal. And if you haven't joined our team, please consider doing that. So this is where we live, right? So we now have this billionaire class protecting others. And remember, the truth behind the story connected to this whole Jimmy Kimmel situation is money. It's money. It's money. It's the Nextar Tenga merger, $6.2 billion. People, by the way, that benefit from the tax cuts that same group of people, $6.2 billion sale that needs the FCC to sign off on. Okay? Disney, the parent company of ABC, who owns Hulu, wants to buy Fubo, which is a streaming service. They need the FCC and the DOJ particularly because of antitrust laws, and the FCC because of station coverage domestically. They need that to happen. So, think about the corruption in politics. We can do this the easy way, we can do this the hard way. The easy way would be for you to take Kimmel off the air. The hard way is that we're not going to approve your license request. Just you tell me a little friend. We can do this the easy way. We can do this the hard way. This is the world we live in now. These fat cat billionaires at the top enriching themselves on the back of the American taxpayer, while 20 million families in our country, as it sits today, 20 million families in our country are food insecure. Nothing to see here, though, right? Nothing to see here. Totally fine. Nothing to see. I'm going to take a little break. I'll be right back. You got this?
I've got this. You go ahead. Hello, folks. So in the interest of Anglo-American relations, I thought I would read you an article from the Byline Times' most recent publication. This was written by Ollie Haynes, and it's about the Reform UK Party Conference. And it says, although the Reform UK Conference was an undeniably British affair, replete with Union Jack suits and Nigel Farage football shirts, that's soccer to you folks, there was an unmistakable undercurrent of American, or more accurately, MAGA influence at the Birmingham gathering in September. Turquoise Make Britain Great Again hats were on sale at the merchandise stand, and multiple attendees sported GOP elephant label pins. One wore a baseball cap with an eagle and the slogan, GUNS, God and Trump. But beyond the aesthetics, it was clear from the policy discussions on the fringes, as well as the invitees on the main stage, that Donald Trump's MAGA movement has become a growing source of influence over and inspiration for reform. That was perfect timing, Steve. I got through the first section of the article. I'll continue tomorrow. And whilst Steve's just getting ready again, don't forget to tap and share the live. Factsstillmatter.site, you'll find all of our wonderful merch designs, as well as a way to become a member that isn't through Suit and Drink Talk Superfans, because nobody seems to be liking those. Head on over there, join the community. We have a wonderful Discord too, where we post all of our sources, because I see a lot of people ask that question. And
yes,
take
indeed.
it away, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Fred. You ready?
Ready. Whee!
Real quick, thank you to Char. Thank you so much for your kind contribution, Char. Thank you very, very much on the green app. Also over on the blue, I got Hector earlier. Thank you, Partey Dad. Thank you, Jolie. You guys are great. And thank you, Carol, over on PayPal. Appreciate you very, very much. We're, again, later this week, we're going to be kind of announcing this little thing to kind of help get us on over to YouTube. We need some stuff, and we're going to ask our community to help. So that'll be coming up probably on Wednesday. We'll make that official announcement. All right. So to me, so much of this is related to the same thing, right? It is the again, a system built by people who look like me to benefit people who look like me, to protect people who look like me while they're enriching themselves. And the question, like, we can't do a thought experiment with MAGA because that doesn't fly, because they're not the brightest bulbs in the tree, let's be honest. But you can't argue the fact that they complain often about, how much they're struggling. Cause and effect, right? You voted for this. You live in states that take money from the federal government thanks to blue states. I want it back. I want it back. You want to talk about an economic civil war? the economic civil war is over as soon as blue states said, yeah, you're done. We're shutting off the funnel. Game over. Done. That's it. Supply chains crumble. So I was curious about, should I do that now? We're speaking about jobs. So this was, the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster, convicted felon, name on a list predator. This is what he had to say about job creation. And this is a speech that somebody wrote for him.
Virtually 100% of the net job creation in the last year has gone to migrants. You know that? Most of the job creation has gone to migrants. In fact, I've heard that substantially more than beyond the number of 100%. It's a much higher number than that, but the government hasn't caught up with that yet. But virtually.
What? More than 100%. Okay, so more than 100% of the jobs that have been created by migrants? What? What?
Smart people don't like me.
What? Okay. I don't even know what that was. I laugh because I'll cry. I'm not sure where I want to go now with this. I have a lot of things we can talk about here. Let's do this. I want to get into the Alex Acosta thing in a little bit because that story's not going to go away and we're not going to let it. But there's a U.S. attorney that is resigning who was tasked by the feds to go after Letitia James. So there was this story that broke over the weekend about a Truth Social post that the president made. And it read as if it was supposed to be a direct message. Now, it's still up on Truth Social, and I'm wondering if because it was so weird that they had to leave it up because it would lead to a lot of suspicion. So here's the story first. I'll play this. This is sound from NBC.
News on a story that we have been following all day, Simone, and that is that U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, who oversees the federal prosecutor's office in the Eastern District of Virginia. As you will recall, he was tasked by the president with pursuing a case against New York AG Letitia James over supposed mortgage fraud. Told colleagues late Friday that he plans to resign. That is after being told by the president he would be fired or he could resign, and that he expects his assistant Maya Song will be demoted from her supervisory role. All of this is according to a person familiar with Siebert's discussions. Simone, Siebert was a loyalist. Yeah. I mean, we are now at the point where a Trump loyalist, someone he appointed to the post, refuses to do his bidding. And even those folks are being told you can resign or you'll be fired. Breaking news on a story that we have been. That story in a second. I just want to call this out. SES 1509 posted in a comment that said, hey, can host talk about the financial surplus in Michigan? State being run by women. Again, nihilistic progressivism. Burn the fucking shit down. Give the keys to the car to women and get the fuck out of the way. And then live in a matriarchy where empathy rules, where kindness wins, where we work harder, where we work smarter, we're a hell of a lot fucking tougher, not afraid of every damn thing. Let's fucking go. So that story is weird. There's a Trump loyalist, right? So the story, the specifics around the Letitia James case, and I kind of wanted to get a summary. The claim was she committed mortgage fraud. And there's no evidence of it at all. None. Will there be an indictment? It seems unlikely based on what has been reported. There isn't currently any evidence to form a solid criminal indictment. The sources repeatedly say prosecutors have not found any evidence of knowing false statements or intent. The fact that Siebert, the prosecutor in charge, concluded the evidence was weak
and then resigned under pressure suggests internal hesitance about moving forward with chargers. The legal barriers, burden of proof, needing a proof of knowing misrepresentation, showing the misstatement was material to the lender's decision are high, given that much of the problematic document may not have been seen and or relied on by the lender, weakens the entire fucking argument. A U.S. attorney appointed by Trump said, listen, I'm out of here. This is fucking bullshit. There's no evidence of it all. And then the story got weirder because the True Social post reads like a direct message, a text message. Pam, he addressed it to Pam. I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, quote, same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Nothing's being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing's going to be done. Then we almost put a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who's never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit. And that we had no case. No, I fired him. And there's a great case. And many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsey Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. That's what's doing it? Okay. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing, in all caps. Justice must be served now. President DJT. So he kind of had to step in because he basically called out Pam by addressing to her like it was a direct message, right? A follow-up True Social post was this. Pam Bondi is doing a great job as Attorney General of the United States. She's very careful, very smart, loves our country, but needs a tough prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia. Like my recommendation, Lindsey Halligan, to get things moving. What we don't need is a Democrat-endorsed Republican that you appointed, sir. I will be nominating Lindsey Halligan to be the United States Attorney in this very important part of our great country. She'll be fair, she'll be smart, and provide desperately needed justice for all. So I like the way the angle they took on MSNBC, saying it doesn't matter now. Even if you're a fucking loyalist, you either do my bidding or you're out of here. So it wasn't deleted. It's still there. It's still on True Social. It wasn't deleted. So think about it. Think about that. Are you using, like you're saying, was it a direct message? It reads like one. It reads like a text message. It kind of reads like a text message. It doesn't read like his typical True Social posts, right? It's really strange. So then he has to do the follow-up to try to lend a little bit more credibility back to Pam. If Pam Bondi is doing a good job, then what? So if the rapture's going to come, I don't know who I want to go first. I go back and forth. I think I'm at Kash Patel. I think I want him to go first. He's going to lose his job. He's going to be the sacrificial lamb because he can't fire Pam, because then people be like, shit, if I fire a woman, then I'm going to be told again that I'm a misogynist, even though I am. So I'm going to have to fire Kash. That's going to be problematic because he's a foreigner. I can't fire Pete because Pete is just like, he's my go-to guy. He's my warrior. He's got the ethos. And it's going to have to be Kash. MAGA won't care. He's some brown skin guy. MAGA won't give a shit. I'll make up some excuse. Okay. Okay. I want to play this story. So this was a very interesting, and then I'm going to get into the Acosta stuff. So you guys recall that there was
Let me ask you something.
Hold on. There's a lot of consternation about the changes that RFK made to the CDC. Okay. And a lot of people were terminated. And there was controversy over language to one of the people in the leadership positions at the CDC about how RFK said, can I trust you? Are you loyal? Things like that. This is Mark Wayne Mullins, who's a fucknut, Oklahoma senator. Shocker. What do you know? Questioning this CDC official. Her name is Susan Monarez. Questioned former CDC Director Susan Monarez at a Senate confirmation hearing last week about her firing, accusing her of being untrustworthy and lying about a conversation she had with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy. This is the conversation.
Your conversation with the secretary, you said that he said he didn't trust you.
Correct.
You testified to that. Is that really how that conversation went? Because there's other people in the room, and I think the conversation was, can he trust you? And your answer was?
He said he could not trust me.
No. The answer, ma'am, it was a recorded meeting. So you can testify one way, or you can prove that you're lying or give them to be honest with this committee. I'm giving you the opportunity to be honest here because you've been really walking around the edges and not being truthful. So did he ask you the question, can he trust you? And your answer was?
He told me he could not trust me. And I told him if he could not trust me, he could fire me.
That isn't how that conversation went. And you know that, don't you?
He told me.
Interesting that a Republican member of the Senate calling into question the credibility of a woman testifying. Wow, who knew?
He could not trust me. And I told him if he could not trust me, he could fire me.
Ma'am, all we're looking for is you to be honest. And you haven't been. You're not being honest with the conversation you're having. You're not being honest with the timeline, and you won't even give the answers of who your attorneys were. And all we're looking for is you to be honest. If we're going to have a hearing and we're going to discuss certain things, let's make sure we're talking with someone that we can trust your answers. It's like my kids. I tell my kids all the time, you know, one thing I want from you, I can deal with any situation we walk into as long as I know you're being 100% honest with me. The minute I can't tell you're being honest with me, I can't trust you. From then on, everything you say is questioned. And you have to question you because your personality and your answers aren't correct.
I understand Senator Mullen implied there was a recording of the meeting.
So this is Senator Bill Cassidy. Bill Cassidy, by the way, a physician who became the tie-breaking vote to get RFK confirmed. And Bill Cassidy is regretting his vote, you can tell. So he steps in now.
Meetings between Dr. Monarez and Secretary Kennedy. I will note that if materials have been provided to Senator Mullen and invoked in official committee business, they are committee records, and all other senators on the committee have the right to see those records. I will also note
the claim again that Mr. Mullen said this was recorded, and Kennedy's like, if you've got the recording, bro, you got to be sharing it. That's how this is supposed to work. Someone's in trouble when you get called up at your own party.
If HHS has a recording, I asked them to release the recording. I'd also like to know why it was recorded. But releasing the recording would be radical transparency. And this is about fulfilling the president's vision of radical transparency. This is allegiance to President Trump's values. And so I'd ask that that recording be released. I'll also note that we put in a request for any documents or communications that would bring transparency to the situation. We have not yet received those documents. If a recording does not exist, I ask Senator Mullen to retract his line of questions. For the record, it's just been reported that Senator Mullen told reporters that he was mistaken in saying that the RFK Monarez meeting was recorded.
Really? Interesting. So you gaslight a woman who's testifying before you, and then you're like, oops.
But in case he's mistaken that he was mistaken, if there is a recording, it should be released. And it would beg the question of what other conversations were recorded. And I'll repeat what I said earlier. We have sent a request to HHS for records related to these incidences. We've yet to receive those. But of course, it would help the committee, which on both sides has found itself scratching its head. It'd help us kind of discern what the truth is.
What do you know? What do you know? You know, it's been recorded. So two lies. One, there is no evidence that was recorded. And two, you said on the recording of the claim that she made that she told Secretary Kennedy that he couldn't be trusted, that she couldn't be trusted. That is MAGA hypocrisy. Fucking busted, you dick. Unreal. All right, I want to cover the Acosta story, and I have to wrap at 11:30 today. So let's get through this, because this is again just more fucking bullshit. So Alex Acosta, in case you don't know, was the person who negotiated the NPA, which is the non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein got. It was signed in 2007, 2008, while Epstein was under investigation for crimes involving minors. Southern District of Florida, federal prosecutors working with Palm Beach County officials. Epstein avoided federal prosecution. Instead, he pled guilty in state court to 2 prosecution charges, one involving a minor. The outcome, an 18-month sentence. He served 13 months, much of it on controversial work release. The federal shield, the NPA, granted immunity from federal charges, not just to Epstein, but also to potential co-conspirators, an unusual provision that later became one of the most criticized aspects. The deal was concealed from victims, a violation of the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act, a court later ruled. Who negotiated it? Alex Acosta, then U.S. Attorney, later Secretary of Labor, for whom? Say it with me, friends. Donald Trump. He ultimately approved and signed off on the NPA. Okay? So that's who Alex Acosta is. So he testified last week. He argued that prosecutors of his office believed that there was insufficient evidentiary resources to secure a federal conviction. Dozens of girls at the time, women, testified. But his claim is with insufficient evidentiary resources. Concerned that losing at trial would allow Epstein to escape accountability. Acosta said his office, this is from the testimony last week. Acosta said that his office had received assurances that Epstein would not be granted work release, but that local Palm Beach authorities did grant it anyway. He expressed regret over that outcome. Okay. He expressed remorse for the way things turned out, including how victims were treated and with how transparent prosecutors were with them. He admitted that with what is now known, the case could have and should have been handled differently. He has not reviewed all victim statements. For example, he said he did not directly read all of the victim statements and questioned whether or not they were all credible. He claims he never saw DT with JE or on any Epstein-related documents. I don't know how that's possible. And he said he never met with Epstein or Maxwell. Again, I don't know how that's possible either. Never met with Epstein? Acosta defended that his decisions were based on what his office believed was legally possible at the time. He acknowledged failures in execution, especially around work release and transparency with victims, and expressed regret. He drew a distinction between what was known at the time and what he viewed as credible. Much of the controversy centers on whether prosecutors had enough evidence, how much they knew, or how they used it or didn't use it, including victims' testimony, and whether assurances from local authorities were reliable. Same people. It's the same people. It's people protecting others. He knows who's on the list. He's seen it. He's still attempting, and I talked with you guys about this last week, and we had some really intense conversations about this, about how the last hope that Republicans who are holding this list up from being released is now the last thing they have left. The last tool that they have in their fascist playbook is to question the credibility of the survivors. That's it. That's what they're down to. And even he said that in his statement, right? Yeah, we can ensure the credibility. I believe women. I believe the survivors in this case. I believe them. 10 toes down. I have no reason not to. I believe them. So we've got people protecting others. The same people that are beneficiaries. We know Ghislaine Maxwell talked about some of the people. We know who they are. People who've never been held accountable, primarily white men. People who've never been held accountable. Same people that swim in the same circles. Same people. They know who they are. So the only thing you have left is the question of credibility. You lied about the list to begin with. You lied over and over about the list to begin with. You lied about the names that were on it. You lied about the signature. You lied about the birthday book. You lied about the fact that you had names, that the whole situation with Kash Patel and his testimony was a fucking disaster. Do I have any of that pulled up? I can find it. The whole thing was a fucking disaster. Lie on top of lie, on top of lie, on top of lie, on top of lie. All of it. Who the fuck are you protecting? The same people. It's the same fucking people. There's reporting that 90% of Americans want the list released. 90%. 90%. Right. It's like all the women lied, right? Exactly. All of them. They all lied. 90% of the American public want the list released. Who doesn't? The people who've seen it, the people who know what's on it, the people who've seen the testimony, the people that have seen the evidence, because they know their entire fucking bubble is burst. Because that is the end of MAGA. It's not just about protecting the president, it's about protecting themselves because they've been protecting the president. Last little bit of sound we'll play from the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon, because it goes back a long way about him discrediting the press by design.
The public understands how inherently dishonest the press in this country is.
As a member of the press, let me try to clear up some of the things which you say are untrue. My bankers and I worked out a terrific deal that allows me to come out stronger than ever. I see the deal as a great victory. Being on the verge of bankruptcy, being bailed out by the banks.
Well, you don't have to say on the
skating on thin ice and almost drowning, that's a businessman to be admired.
You say on the verge of bankruptcy, Barbara, and you talk on the verge, and you listen to what people are saying.
I talk to your bankers.
Well, that's fine. And what do they say? I mean, depending on which banker you're talking to, what do they say? Well, I don't know what the bankers have said. The plaza is a very valuable property. Everybody told me, oh, you paid too much, you paid too much. Now they're all saying what a great deal he made on the plaza. Not. The general public.
No, they're not. So this has been in his playbook. This is the Roy Cohn playbook that goes back to his dad. It is us versus them. He's one of them. His cult is protecting them. Meanwhile, they are raw dogging all of us, including them, to extremes that they're not aware of because they don't want to listen, because they can't step outside their cult, because they hate brown people, black people, queer people, women, the disabled, any marginalized group. They hate them so much that they're unwilling to realize that they're getting fucked. Meanwhile, we, the ideological left, want their kids to fucking eat food. We want them to be able to afford a house because if they can, we can. We want their children to have a better life than they did because if our kids do, then their kids do. And if their kids do, then our kids do. Instead, these people, the 78 million, have been convinced that feeding people is so bad. Feeding kids. 20 million American households are food insecure. 20 million. There are families in bright red Trump country who tonight, mom and dad may not eat so they can feed their kids if they're lucky. And mom and dad will blame Democrats because the cult told them to. We're going to wrap there, friends. Back tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you all. Smartest Chat on TikTok. The reason we can have these conversations is because of you guys. because I know your brains work, and I know you're thinking. I know you want this information, and I'm here to bring it to you every day. The best mods in TikTok. Thank you all guys very, very much. They keep me honest. Thank you, Eve, for joining us again. We're gonna go rate Danny, D-A-N-I. Tell her we said hello. Love you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed to YouTube, please consider doing that. And again, if you want to support the channel, best way to do that is through the various pay apps, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. A little light on our goal today. If you want to kick in, it's always appreciated. Never expected, but always appreciated.